Chapter 90. This is the flesh of the Lord, and he gave it up for us. You should eat it. The archbishop's voice echoed in the quiet and solemn main hall of the church. Vera respectfully took the Holy Communion from the archbishop and put it into her mouth. This is the blood of the Lord, and he gave it to you for us. You should drink it. The archbishop then handed Vera a glass of pure holy water. Vera drank it all in one gulp. Standing in the crowd watching the ceremony, Colin suddenly had some new thoughts about the two lines of prayer that he was used to. Of course, he had also heard these two prayers during his own coming-of-age ceremony. Every citizen of the Empire of Light was familiar with the story behind these prayers. Legend had it that tens of thousands of years ago, human beings were not as strong as they were now. At that time, the human race was not only bullied and enslaved by various foreign races, but they were also targeted by countless demons. These demons coveted the souls of human beings, and they used all kinds of means, such as deception, temptation, and intimidation, to make human beings offer their souls. At that time, the human race was shrouded in darkness. That was until the appearance of the God of Light. According to the records in the Book of Light, the God of Light sacrificed his own body in order to save the fallen human race. His flesh became the Holy Communion, and his blood became the holy water that fell from the sky. After eating the Holy Communion and drinking the holy water, the human race would be able to get rid of the demons and gain the power to fight against them. At this time, the human race finally embarked on the road to rise. In order to commemorate the sacrifice of the God of Light, the church would host such a process of sharing the Holy Communion and holy water during the coming-of-age ceremony. Looking at Vera drinking the holy water in one gulp, Colin licked his lips. He thought of the bottle of pure holy water that had helped him to advance, and he secretly wondered if that was really the blood of the God of Light. Eat the flesh of the Lord, drink the blood of the Lord, and from now on, the God of Light will be with you. The Lord is with me. Vera's coming-of-age ceremony was still going on. Today, the Duke's adopted daughter was wearing a classic white pear flower dress, and her blonde hair was draped over her shoulders. She was not dressed up today, and she did not have any extra jewelry on her body. She only had light makeup on. Even so, she was still breathtakingly beautiful. In addition, she was not wearing shoes. Her fair jade-like feet stepped on the cold marble floor, making people love her and feel sorry for her. The archbishop finally finished his prayer and placed a crown of thorns on Vera's head. When Colin saw this, he suddenly realized a problem. Vera was a sorcerer, but the coming-of-age ceremony for the children of the nobles had always been presided over by the priests of the Church of Glory. This seemed to be a tacit admission that Vera had already converted to the Radiance Church. Of course, the coming-of-age ceremony did not explicitly require the recipient to be a believer of the church. But the reason for this was because of the Radiance Empire's nobles. Which one of them didn't believe in the Radiance God? Except for Vera, who was an anomaly. Oh no, the current Vera was no longer an anomaly. After the battle at the Rapids, she had personally told Colin that she had converted to the God of Light. However, she also said that in order to avoid unnecessary trouble, she could not make this matter public for the time being. Therefore, as long as Vera did not take the initiative to admit it, the sorcerers of Yule Empire would probably be able to explain that this was the only form of the coming-of-age ceremony for the children of the nobles. If this was the case, Vera's acceptance of the coming-of-age ceremony did not necessarily mean that she believed in the God of Light. Unless Yule Empire wanted to fall out with the northern frontier now, the sorcerers could only think of it this way for now. After the archbishop put the crown of thorns on Vera's head, he bowed and retreated. After that, Queen Medela stepped forward and handed a copy of the Book of Glory to Vera. Finally, the Duke of St. Hilda stepped forward and handed a knight's sword to Vera. The crown of thorns symbolized responsibility and dedication. The Book of Glory symbolized wisdom and faith. The knight's sword symbolized courage and strength. At this point, the 18-year-old girl had finally completed her transformation and officially opened a new chapter in her life. After witnessing all of this, the first thought that popped up in Colin's mind was after the coming-of-age ceremony, they could get married. The ceremony was actually over at this point, and then it was time for the banquet that the nobles had been looking forward to for a long time. Of course, the banquet would not be held in the main hall of the church. Under the lead of the Duke of St. Hilda, everyone left the church and came to the atrium of the Lion's Roar Castle. There, the butler had already prepared everything. Food, wine, music, a dance floor. In short, the real night had just begun. After the Duke of St. Hilda finished his opening speech, the banquet officially began. Just like the banquet in Icestone City, many unmarried nobles immediately stared at the focus of tonight's banquet, Vera. Who would be able to invite her to the first dance? Many people looked at Colin. Last time, it was this humble baron's son who had successfully invited Vera, and he was the only one who had succeeded. Now, Colin had transformed into Viscount Angley. It seemed that Colin was more confident this time. Therefore, the nobles were a little hesitant. They wanted to see what Colin was going to do first. After all, he was the man most likely to be able to dance with Vera. Colin was still in a relaxed posture, as if he did not realize that a fierce competition had quietly begun. Just as the nobles were hesitating, a troll noble suddenly stood up. Prince Okamoto came in front of Vera and first greeted her with a standard human noble bow, and then said in a clear voice, "Beautiful Miss Vera, in order to celebrate your coming-of-age ceremony, I have specially prepared a small gift for you. I hope you will like it." After that, Okamoto took a roll of parchment from the servant behind him and slowly unfolded it. It was a map. Colin raised his eyebrows, thinking that this guy wasn't going to play a trick of revealing his true intentions, was he? However, he quickly shook his head and denied his own guess. Even if the trolls really wanted to send an assassin, they would not send Okamoto. They would send the Prince of the North, who was said to have just advanced to the sanctuary. The map was completely unfolded. There was no dagger. There were only 3 big red circles. Okamoto pointed at the 3 red circles on the map and said to Vera, "Dear Miss Vera, my gift is these 3 military fortresses." Colin took a few steps forward and saw the location of the 3 military fortresses. They were all located on the southern border of the Troll Kingdom. What did this mean? Was he going to give away his own defensive line to the enemy? Vera looked at the map in a daze, and she was also a little confused. With her military literacy, she probably did not understand what this meant. However, the Duke of St. Hilda suddenly spoke. "Prince Okamoto, are you saying that these 3 military fortresses will be guarded by the army of the north?" At this time, the nobles present realized the value of this gift. No, this was not just valuable. It was a sign that the trolls were bowing down to the northern frontier. It was as if the Japanese had sent the Yokota base to the American army and said, "Dad, come and tie the dog chain for me." Chapter 91. Colin knew that Prince Okamoto had come to the northern frontier to ask for peace. As the defeated party, if Okamoto wanted the northern frontier to agree to the peace talks, he would have to compromise and lower his stance. However, he did not expect that the other party would actually lower his stance so much. He was almost kneeling on the ground. It was as if the Duke of St. Hilda did not forgive them because it would damage the knight's virtue of forgiveness. But to be honest, Colin felt that this young troll prince was quite smart. This was because the Troll Empire had already suffered heavy losses. 300,000 elite soldiers had been wiped out, and the trolls wouldn't be able to recover without 3 to 5 years of rest. As the Troll Empire's biggest enemy, the northern frontier would definitely not let go of such a good opportunity. They would definitely not let the Troll Empire recover. Therefore, in Colin's opinion, this peace talks were just wishful thinking on the part of the Troll Empire. But who would have thought that Prince Okamoto would actually be so crazy? Since he could not fight against the northern frontier, then he might as well not fight. He gave away all the military outposts on his border because he wanted to tell the Duke of St. Hilda that he was no longer a threat to him. "I'm no longer a threat to you. Please don't beat me up again." It had to be said that this was a crazy choice. However, it might really be able to move the Duke of St. Hilda's heart. In particular, Colin was very clear that the biggest threat in the eyes of the Duke of St. Hilda was actually Marquis Garcia, his brother who had just been betrayed by him. Would the Duke agree to the peace talks with the Troll Empire and focus on solving the internal conflicts? The atmosphere of the banquet suddenly became a little heavy. Vera was also a little helpless at this time. She could only look at the Duke of St. Hilda with a pleading look. The Duke put down the wineglass in his hand and said in a low voice, "Prince Okamoto, this gift of yours seems a little too expensive." Prince Okamoto shook his head with a smile. "Your Excellency, how can this be considered valuable? In fact, I even feel that such a gift is not worthy of Miss Vera's status at all. Therefore, I have decided to solemnly promise you that while I am the southern prince of the giant demon empire, I will not take the initiative to start a war with the northern frontier." Whoosh! The entire audience was in an uproar. Everyone was shocked by the generosity of this giant demon prince. The Duke of St. Hilda looked at Okamoto with bright eyes. "Is this your gift?" Prince Okamoto placed his left hand on his chest before he bowed deeply to the Duke of St. Hilda. "This is also the betrothal gift that I would like to give to Miss Vera." Whoosh! This time, the crowd reacted even more strongly, as if they had poked a hornet's nest. The male nobles who were bent on pursuing Vera glared at the troll prince angrily. They could not wait to kick the troll prince to the ground and curse at him. "Do you think you are worthy?" Vera's small face instantly turned red. Then, her face gradually turned white. This was because she saw that her father did not reject Prince Okamoto's request immediately. Instead, he was deep in thought, as if he was really considering the feasibility of this matter. Vera panicked. She did not want to marry someone who was thousands of miles away in the firmament ice field, let alone marry a giant demon. In a panic, she subconsciously looked for a reliable figure in the crowd. Colin also saw Vera's pleading eyes. Originally, he was still a little hesitant. After all, he was just a viscount. It was actually a little bit too much for him to marry the Duke's adopted daughter. Originally, he had planned to find an opportunity to make some military achievements and raise the rank of the Angeli family again before he came to propose marriage. However, when he saw Vera's big watery eyes looking at him, Colin made up his mind. He could not hesitate any longer. Otherwise, who knew if the Duke would be moved by Prince Okamoto's offer and marry Vera to the firmament ice field? One had to know that this was absolutely not impossible. Vera was not the Duke's biological daughter. More than 10 years ago, he had personally sent her to Yevil. Therefore, he did not have any qualms about sending her to the firmament ice field now. Perhaps, the Duke could not wait to send Vera away at this time. After all, she was a threat to the smooth succession of the Dukes of the North. Therefore, Colin took a few steps forward and said, Duke, please forgive me for offending you." Just as Colin opened his mouth to speak, someone actually took the initiative to step forward. This person was the half-elf prince that Colin had met at the entrance of chilly Winter City, Tup Madawin. Prince Tup strode over to the Duke and stood side by side with Prince Okamoto. "I think that you should not agree to this marriage." Colin blinked as he had a bad premonition in his heart. But the Duke of St. Hilda's tone was emotionless. "Because I think that I am more suitable to be Miss Vera's husband." "What?" Sure enough, Colin, who had already guessed what the half-elf prince was going to say, snorted coldly. At the same time, he was complaining in his heart. "Why are you guys so eager to snatch the woman that I like?" "Ha!" The Duke suddenly laughed. "Vera, now that the troll prince and the half-elf prince want to marry you, who do you want to marry?" Vera blushed as she shook her head and said, "Father, I do not want to get married yet." The Duke shook his head and insisted, "Don't say such childish things. You will eventually get married." "But are you not interested in either of them?" Vera had an awkward expression on her face as she wrung her hands together uneasily. She did not know how to answer this question. Queen Medela suddenly smiled and suggested, "Vera, if you are in a difficult position, why don't you let them use the most ancient and most traditional ceremony, a duel, to decide who will marry you?" As soon as they heard this, the atmosphere in the scene suddenly rose. Two nobles were dueling over the ownership of a beautiful girl. Was there anything more exciting than this? All the male nobles from the northern frontier who wanted to pursue Vera also gave up at this time. After all, the two men who stood up to propose at this time were of very high status. Among the nobles from the northern frontier who were present, it was really difficult to find a competitor whose status, age, and appearance matched the two of them. It was no wonder. This was because the noble circle in the northern frontier had just undergone a round of purging. In the past, there might have been a few nobles who could stand up at this time, but they were all beheaded by the Duke. For a time, the noble circle in the northern frontier had a shortage of young people. However, if these two foreigners really plucked the most delicate and noble flower in the northern frontier, then it would be an insult to the northern frontier. Thinking of this, many people turned their eyes to Colin. Although this Viscount Anglesey's title was not high and he was not very famous. After all, he had danced with Vera before. Maybe he had a chance. Colin also understood at this time that he had to stand up. If he really let Vera marry someone else, he was afraid that he would regret it for the rest of his life. And Marquis Garcia would probably hunt him down for the rest of his life. So, Colin took a deep breath, strode forward and said loudly, "Duke, bang." However, the moment Colin opened his mouth, an accident happened again. Marquis Adams suddenly fell to the ground with a pale face and his whole body twitched. Screams sounded from all directions. The banquet was suddenly in a mess. Only Colin had a stomach full of words, and he was in a mess in the wind. Can't you let me propose properly? Chapter 92. Duke, I'm sorry. Marquis Adams has returned to the embrace of the lords. As soon as the Archbishop finished his sentence, the atmosphere in the hall immediately dropped to a freezing point. Everyone could not believe it for a moment. Marquis Adams died just like that? The second son of the Duke of St. Hilda, the first successor to the Lord of the Northern Frontier, died just like that? He even died at a banquet in his own castle. This was too absurd. However, reality was often so absurd. The nobles widened their eyes and covered their mouths. They did not even dare to make a sound of fear, afraid that it would agitate the Duke of St. Hilda. At this time, the Duke was staring at the crystal chandelier on the ceiling in a daze, as if the one who was just declared dead by the Archbishop was not his son, but an unrelated passerby. After an unknown period of time. Finally, a voice broke the suffocating silence. Archbishop, how did Adams die? This was Empress Medella's question. Your Highness, I am still not completely sure of the cause of death of the Marquis. We need to do a further autopsy to come to a conclusion. But according to my experience, the Marquis should have died of poisoning. The Empress immediately turned to the knights behind her and ordered, "Arrest all the servants who prepared the food tonight and interrogate them one by one." After a slight commotion, all the attendants present were arrested. Even the old butler of the house of St. Hilda was no exception. The second son of the Duke was poisoned to death at a banquet in his own castle. This was a great humiliation, especially since this second son was now the first successor to the Dukes of the North. Under such circumstances, even if the Duke of St. Hilda remained silent, everyone could already foresee the impending landslide and tsunami. No matter who the murderer was, the Duke would not let it go. Colin looked at Marquis Adams lying on the ground with a hideous face bleeding from his 7 orifices, then looked at the Duke of St. Hilda who was still admiring the crystal chandelier, and finally turned his gaze to Marquis Garcia who was also silent. His heart became heavier and heavier. Yes, Colin's first suspect was Marquis Garcia. Because his motive for committing the crime was too great. Charles had been disinherited, and now Adams was dead. Then, if the Duke's youngest son, Joyce, were to meet with misfortune, wouldn't Vera become the first in line to inherit the throne of the Dukes of the North? Could it be that this was Marquis Garcia's retaliation to his brother's betrayal of his promise? However, although Marquis Garcia was the most suspicious, Colin felt that this didn't seem like Marquis Garcia's handiwork. Because from their previous interactions, Colin had figured out the Marquis temperament. He was not a person who liked to scheme and scheme. Colin felt that Marquis Garcia wouldn't be able to do something as despicable as poisoning. He would rather believe that Marquis Garcia would lead the Black Cavalry to attack Coldwinter than believe that Marquis Garcia would poison his nephew. Could it be someone deliberately poisoned Marquis Adams in order to sow discord between the Duke of St. Hilda and Marquis Garcia? After all, Adams' death made Marquis Garcia the most suspicious. No. Colin immediately realized that he had overlooked an important factor. That was, The promise that the Duke of St. Hilda had made to Marquis Garcia was a secret that very few people knew. Moreover, the fact that Marquis Garcia was Vera's biological father was also a secret that very few people knew. Therefore, even if someone wanted to sow discord between the two brothers, unless they knew these two secrets at the same time, they would never resort to such means. At the very least, Prince Okamoto wouldn't do it. Colin didn't believe that these two secrets could be known by a troll like him. Therefore, he could formulate such a vicious plan. What's more, even if he knew these two secrets, it would be extremely difficult for him to poison Marquis Adams. Moreover, he had poisoned the banquet in the Lion's Roar Castle. Moreover, he had poisoned Marquis Adams with such precision. Colin couldn't figure out how he had done it. Just as Colin was trying to learn from Kuo to solve this murder case, the Duke of St. Hilda finally spoke. His voice became particularly hoarse and low, but he wasn't too agitated. In fact, he was even a little too calm. However, everyone could hear the fury that the Duke was suppressing. Prince Okamoto, Prince Tup, although both of you want to marry Vera, Vera can't marry both of you at the same time. Therefore, I can only choose one of you. The Duke of St. Hilda didn't mention the death of Marquis Adams at all. It was as if it was no longer important. He stood up from his seat and walked towards where Okamoto and Tup were standing. Marquis Adams' body was right next to his feet, but he didn't look down. Prince Okamoto, I want to know, if Vera didn't marry you, would you still be willing to negotiate peace with the northern frontier? Prince Okamoto's heart sank, but he still said helplessly, Of course, Your Excellency. My yearning for peace will never change. In fact, he had no other choice. Could the Troll Empire still fight a war with the northern frontier? As long as the northern frontier agreed to negotiate peace, then he could accept any conditions. The Duke of St. Hilda turned around and called out to the crowd, Nala, come here. A tall little beauty walked quickly to the Duke of St. Hilda's side. Although she wasn't as beautiful as Vera, she was still quite beautiful. The Duke of St. Hilda took Nala's little hand and pushed her in front of Prince Okamoto, saying, This is my niece, Nala. She is also a noble St. Hilda. Is she worthy of you, Prince Okamoto? Of course. It is my honor to marry Miss Nala. Prince Okamoto bowed to Nala and then stretched out his right hand. Nala was obviously still a little confused. She didn't expect that she would be betrothed to a troll by her uncle. However, looking at the Duke of St. Hilda's expressionless face, Nala couldn't bring herself to resist. Therefore, she slowly put her hand in Prince Okamoto's hand. At this point, the Duke of St. Hilda finally squeezed out a smile on his face. He then turned around and shouted at Vera, Vera, come here. Vera, who was still grieving over her brother's sudden death, was suddenly stunned. Then, she slowly walked over to the Duke's side with confusion and hesitation. The Duke held Vera's hand and looked at the half-elf prince in front of him. Prince Tup, tell me that you will treat her well. Prince Tup was stunned for a while. Obviously, he was completely shocked by the huge surprise that had fallen from the sky. After a long while, he finally stepped forward with a red face and said excitedly, Duke, I am willing to swear that I will never let Vera down in this life. Otherwise, I will go to hell after I die and suffer endless torture for eternity. Father, Vera was also stunned. She had never thought that she would be married off by her father like this. Moreover, she was married off to another country, to a stranger that she had only met a few times. She was just about to break free from the Duke's hand when she suddenly froze. This was because she saw the Duke looking at her. It was a look that she had never seen before. It was exhaustion, disappointment, anger, and even fear. At this moment, Vera suddenly realized that her father, who used to be omnipotent, the Duke who had killed people on the northern frontier, had also become old at this time. In a trance, she felt as if she had returned to 10 years ago when the Duke wanted to send her to Yevil to study arcana. At that time, she had tried to resist. However, the Duke had made her kneel in front of the statues of the 12 paladins of the family for one day and one night before he finally told her that, You are a Saint Hilda. While you are enjoying the glory of this family name, you should also not forget the heavy burden that you have to bear. At this moment, facing such a situation, Vera was about to refuse, but she could not bring herself to say it. She could only watch as the Duke held her hand and slowly walked towards Prince Tup. However, just as Vera's hand was about to fall into Prince Tup's hand, a voice suddenly sounded, "Duke, I object to this marriage." Chapter 93. Prince Tup had never hated anyone so much before. At this time, facing Vera's slender hand, the half-elf prince had no choice but to turn around and look at the man who had objected to the marriage. Colin Viscount Angley. After hearing Colin's voice, Vera's face that was as pale as a sheet of paper regained its luster. Her large blue eyes stared fixedly at Colin, filled with longing and apprehension. She was looking forward to her own redemption. "Colin, why are you objecting to this marriage?" the Duke of St. Hilda asked in a cold tone. Colin walked out of the crowd and walked in front of the Duke of St. Hilda calmly. After bowing respectfully, he said in a firm tone, "Duke, I have admired Miss Vera for a long time. Therefore, I sincerely hope that you can give me a chance to fulfill my long-cherished wish." As soon as Colin finished speaking, before the Duke of St. Hilda could say anything, Prince Tup, who was next to him, jumped out like a wild cat. "Let's duel. Viscount Angley. Let us decide who is qualified to marry Miss Vera in a man's way." Immediately after that, a white glove was thrown at Colin's feet. Colin raised his eyebrows and secretly complained. "Do you nobles always carry white gloves with you?" This was the second time that he had been invited to a duel. The last time, it was that crazy woman, Cynthia. At that time, Colin did not pick up her glove. However, this time, Colin knew that he could not back down. However, just as he was about to bend down and pick up Prince Tup's white glove, the Duke of St. Hilda reminded him, "Colin, you have to think carefully. Prince Tup is a third-order knight. Half-elves were mixed blood between humans and elves. They could choose the human special profession, knight, or the elven special profession, ranger. But in the current world, the humans had established the Radiant Empire, while the elves had disappeared into the depths of the Radiant Moon Forest. It was easy to guess the half-elf noble's choice. Most of them had chosen to serve the god of light, so it was not strange that Prince Tup was a knight. However, he was actually a knight of the third step. For a half-elf prince of his age, he was definitely a genius. However, Colin did not feel guilty. He was also stage 3 now. Moreover, he had an immortal body, which was a huge advantage in a duel. Thus, Colin's lips curled into a cold smile. "Your Excellency the Duke, I've thought it through. I'm willing to accept Prince Tup's duel invitation. For the sake of Miss Vera, I will not hesitate to sacrifice my life for her." However, just as Colin's hand was about to touch the white gloves on the ground, Vera suddenly stopped him. "No. Colin, don't do this." Although Colin felt that he had the confidence to defeat Prince Tup, the others did not feel the same way. This was especially true for Vera. As far as she could remember, Colin was only a first-grade knight. Therefore, she certainly did not want Colin to accept Tup's duel invitation. That was simply courting death. "Miss Vera, please don't worry about me," Colin tried to reassure Vera, but Vera did not believe him. In fact, this simple female mage really believed that Colin was willing to die for her. After all, Colin had done the same thing during the battle at the Rapids River. Therefore, Vera, who felt as if a knife was being twisted in her heart, suddenly made a decision. She decided that this time, she would save her knight. "Father, I am willing to marry Prince Tup. Please stop this meaningless duel." As soon as he heard Vera's words, Colin, who had just picked up the white gloves, was stunned. "Can't you have a little more confidence in me?" Colin screamed in his heart. The Duke of St. Hilda finally smiled. Prince Tup was also ecstatic. The half-elf prince's emotions were like a roller coaster ride, going up and down, with great ups and downs. However, in the end, Vera still chose him. Therefore, Prince Tup did not even need the Duke of St. Hilda to stop him. Instead, he immediately said to Colin, who was holding the white gloves in a daze, "Viscount Angley, I'm impressed by your bravery. You've won this duel." A strong sense of humiliation shrouded Colin's entire body. The other party's benevolent attitude completely angered him. He took a big step forward and approached Prince Tup before he asked, "What do you mean by, I have won? If I win, Then shouldn't you take the initiative to withdraw from your pursuit of Vera? Of course not. Miss Vera has already made her choice, and I, of course, respect her choice. Bullshit. Colin threw the white gloves directly at Prince Tup's face. If you are a man, then fight with me. Prince Tup was also angry. In the face of Colin, who did not know what was good for him, he also took a step forward and shouted, "Okay. Let's duel then, Viscount Angley." But Vera suddenly rushed out and stood between the two men who looked like they were fighting. However, the interesting thing was that she was facing Colin instead of Prince Tup, the fiancé that she had personally chosen. "Colin, don't do this. I am not worthy of your sacrifice." Colin looked deeply into Vera's eyes before he asked in a deep voice, "Don't you believe in me?" If you believe in me, then please move aside." Colin was full of confidence, but in Vera's eyes, he was full of generosity. "I will not move aside." Prince Tup, who was standing behind Vera, was furious at this time. No matter how slow he was, he could tell that his fiancée had chosen to marry him because she wanted to protect Colin. They were not even married yet, but she had already been cuckolded. Prince Tup could not stand such humiliation, and he immediately shouted, "Miss Vera, please move aside. Let the men solve their own problems." Enough. A majestic voice interrupted the love triangle that was in the middle of a melodramatic plot. The Duke of St. Hilda strode over to Colin before he asked, "Viscount Angley, are you still loyal to me?" In the face of such a question, Colin had no choice but to kneel down on one knee before he replied, "Of course, I am still loyal to you, Duke." "Good. Now, I will appoint you as the envoy to escort Vera to the half-elf kingdom so that she can marry Prince Tup." Colin's heart trembled, and he fell silent. At this time, he could also see that the Duke was determined to marry Vera to the half-elf kingdom. As for why? Obviously, the death of Marquis Adams had frightened the Duke. He could not help but suspect that this was the doing of his younger brother, Marquis Garcia. Marquis Garcia's purpose was to get rid of the heir before Vera so that Vera could become the future lord of the northern frontier. Therefore, the Duke had to send Vera away at this time. He wanted her to be far away from Winter City, and it would be best if she could marry into a foreign country and give birth to a foreign descendant so that she would have no right to inherit the title of the Duke. As for Vera's feelings, it was obvious that the Duke did not care about them at all. Perhaps, to him, Vera was just a tool for marriage. When he saw that Colin did not speak for a long time, the Duke asked again, "Viscount Angley? Where is your loyalty? Where is your unconditional obedience?" The Duke was pressing him step by step, and Colin had no choice but to suppress his anger. He lowered his head and replied, "Yes, Duke. I will send Miss Vera to the half-elf kingdom safely." At this time, Colin could no longer suppress the anger in his heart. What bullshit Duke? What bullshit loyalty? All he wanted now was to completely burn down this cold and ruthless place that was full of conspiracies and conspiracies. You want to win over the half-elf kingdom? You want to destroy Vera's right to inherit the title of the Duke? But I will not let you get what you want. Colin suddenly raised his head and looked at Marquis Garcia, who was sitting on the high platform and watching everything coldly. The two of them looked at each other, and it seemed as if they had finally reached some kind of tacit understanding. Chapter 94. The setting sun scattered its last rays of light, and soon after, the boundless curtain of night enveloped the land. Bonfires were lit in the camp, and the guards were busy boiling water, cooking, and feeding the horses. Colin handed a letter and a cage containing a carrier pigeon to the Knight of Rigo. At the same time, he ordered, "Rigo, immediately return to Icestone City and tell them that I am going to the half-elven kingdom. Let them take full responsibility for the administrative affairs of the territory. I will write a letter every 5 days to explain the latest situation. If they don't receive my letter after 3 days, release this carrier pigeon. Also, let Raymond and Seal continue to be in charge of training the soldiers. When I return from the half-elven kingdom, I hope to see a preliminary army formed. As for you, after you return, lead 1,000 soldiers to the half-elven capital Silver Moon City. Meet me there." The Knight of Rigo took the cage and turned to leave without asking where the carrier pigeon would fly to after it was released. Actually, This was the carrier pigeon Marquis Garcia gave Colin before he left. It went without saying where it would fly to. Although Marquis Garcia didn't say it explicitly, Colin already understood what he meant. This time, as the messenger, Colin actually didn't need to lead his own troops. After all, this wasn't a war, and the House of St. Hilda had sent 1,000 men to escort him. It would be more than enough to deal with any bandits or wild beasts along the way. However, Colin felt that he had to control a military force that belonged solely to him in case of emergencies. "Sir Viscounts, your dinner is ready. Send it in." A servant carried a metal tray into the tent and placed the food in front of Colin before hurriedly leaving. Although Colin didn't need to eat these normal foods anymore, in order to not attract unnecessary attention, he would still stuff the food into his stomach on time. After finishing the food and drinking some water, Colin walked out of the tent. The composition of the camp was rather complicated. There were guards from the St. Hilda family, the half-elven kingdom Silvermoon Guards, and quite a few trolls. Prince Okamoto's journey back to the Firmament Ice Field overlapped with Colin's journey to the half-elf kingdom. Hence, both parties traveled together for a period of time. The Troll Prince had been in a very good mood recently. Although he did not manage to marry Vera and was instead sent away by the Duke with a girl from another family, the girl's surname was still St. Hilda. Furthermore, Prince Okamoto's objective for this diplomatic mission had already been achieved. The giant demon empire had successfully obtained a precious moment of respite. As for giving the 3 important military bases of the giant demon empire to the northern frontier, it wasn't a big deal. This was because the northern frontier couldn't possibly place a large number of troops in these 3 important military locations. Otherwise, the thousands of miles of supply lines would drag down the northern frontier. As for the promise that they would never invade the northern frontier, well, even the Duke of St. Hilda didn't believe in this promise. In Okamoto's opinion, as long as the giant demon empire could survive this period of time, there would be hope for them to rise again. "Viscount Angley, come and drink with us," Prince Okamoto shouted when he saw Colin strolling around the camp. Colin looked at Prince Okamoto, who was beaming with happiness. He didn't want to go over, but after hesitating for a moment, he accepted the invitation. He had no choice. Ever since he left Winter City, he had been alone. The guards from the House of St. Hilda were not familiar with him, and Vera had been hiding in the carriage and refusing to see anyone. The atmosphere of the entire group was very depressing, and there was no celebration at all. On the other hand, the half-elves were very happy. Prince Tup was so happy that he almost became a fool. He followed the guards to drink and have fun every day. However, it was obviously impossible for Colin to join them. Now that Prince Okamoto had invited him with great hospitality, Colin went over. It was a good opportunity to drink away his worries and relieve his recent troubles. "Come, Your Excellency Viscount Angley, don't be so depressed. There are so many beauties in the world. Why do you have to be so entangled with Miss Vera, this flower?" Colin rolled his eyes and ignored Okamoto. He just took the jug of wine that he handed over and poured it into his mouth. Cough, cough. The spicy taste in his mouth made Colin choke for a moment. "What wine is this?" Prince Okamoto smiled. "This is a medicinal wine brewed by the giant demon witch doctor. It is most suitable to drink at night. Hee, it will liven things up." Looking at the wretched smile on Okamoto's face, Colin suddenly realized what the other party meant by liven things up. "Don't you have any other wine?" Colin threw the jug of wine back at Okamoto. Your Excellency Viscounts, please don't be angry. I have a few dancers here. If you want to vent your anger tonight, I can help you to arrange." Colin was so scared that he turned around and ran away. Giant demon dancer? Forget it. He would rather look for the 5 girls. "Hey, Viscount Angley, don't go." Prince Okamoto saw him running away and chased after him again. "I apologize to you. I really didn't mean to offend you." Colin waved his hand. "It's okay. You don't have to worry about me. Go back and drink your wine. I will walk around by myself. Then I will accompany you for a walk." Colin looked back at Okamoto and said in a puzzled manner, "You have already achieved the purpose of your visit. There is no need for you to continue to be courteous to me." "I really want to make friends with you," Prince Okamoto said in a serious manner. Colin certainly did not believe such words. However, he did not chase Okamoto away. The two of them strolled to a small stream at the edge of the camp. Looking at the slowly flowing stream, Prince Okamoto suddenly asked, "Your Excellency Viscounts, do you know why the Duke wants to marry Vera to Tup?" Colin was puzzled. Could it be that Okamoto had also noticed the competition between the Duke of St. Hilda and Marquis Garcia for the successor? "Why do you think it is?" Colin asked tentatively. "It is a political marriage. What else can it be?" "Of course, it is for the sake of benefits," Okamoto said without hesitation. "Really?" Colin frowned. "It is understandable that the Duke did not choose me. After all, I am just a small viscounts. There is no value in marriage. But do you think that I am more valuable than Tup?" Prince Okamoto suddenly laughed, and it seemed that he was very happy with Colin's praise. "Is that not the case?" Colin also realized that something was wrong at this time. In his opinion, if the Duke wanted to destroy Vera's right to inherit the throne, it would have been equally effective for her to marry Okamoto or Tup. This was because the northern frontier would not accept a woman who was married to a different race to become the Duke, let alone her son, a half-troll or half-elf, to become the Duke's successor. So, why did the Duke choose Prince Tup in the end? In Colin's opinion, Prince Tup's status was not as high as Prince Okamoto's. This was because the Troll Empire was far more powerful than the half-elf kingdom. The Troll Empire had just suffered a crushing defeat and looked like they were on the verge of death. However, as long as they were given 3 to 5 years to recuperate, it would not be difficult for them to pull out an army of 300,000 soldiers again. The half-elf kingdom was a small country with a total population of less than 2 million people. No matter how militaristic they were, it was estimated that pulling out an army of 100,000 soldiers was already the limit. In fact, according to Colin's understanding, this small country was only a subsidiary of the Radiant Empire, and the number of regular soldiers was only about 50,000. Therefore, if the Duke wanted to rope in foreign aid through marriage, why would he favor the half-elf kingdom more than the Troll Empire? Prince Okamoto saw that Colin was confused, so he smiled and said, "Actually, the Duke's real motive for marrying Vera to Prince Tup is not the half-elf kingdom." "Then what is his real motive?" Prince Okamoto stretched out his hand and pointed to the east. "It is the east of the empire." Chapter 95. The Eastern Border of the Empire? Colin frowned even more. He couldn't understand why Vera was married to a half-elf prince, but the eastern border of the empire. As a small country sandwiched between the northern frontier and the eastern border of the empire, the half-elf kingdom had always been swaying left and right, trying to please both sides. However, in Colin's view, this small country didn't seem to be the key to the war between the two sides. As if seeing Colin's confusion, Prince Okamoto smiled and asked, "Your Excellency Viscounts, you don't know about naval warfare, right?" Colin was upset when he heard this. However, he also had to admit that his predecessor didn't have any experience of naval warfare. In fact, there was almost no navy in the entire northern frontier. For a long time, the biggest enemy of the northern frontier was the Icefields Troll Empire. And cavalry was the best troop to deal with the Troll Empire. Therefore, the northern frontier's cavalry had always been the best in the Empire of Light. But if it was a naval army, it would be a bit difficult. At this time, when he heard the Troll Empire say that the Duke was plotting against the eastern border, Colin remembered that the northern frontier and the eastern border were actually separated by a natural moat. The name of this natural moat was the Raging Water River. In fact, the military strength of the Empire of Light wasn't balanced. At least, the northern frontier was obviously stronger than the eastern border. The reason was very simple. The northern frontier had been fighting against the Troll Empire for so many years, while the eastern border's old enemy, the elves, had long disappeared in the Radiant Moon Forest. No one knew whether they were living in seclusion or had been exterminated. But in any case, the eastern border was different from the northern frontier. They didn't have any pressure from foreign races. Only the Yevil Empire at the border of the Radiant Moon Forest might be a bit of an eyesore. But it was just an eyesore. The mages couldn't organize a large army, so they didn't pose much of a threat to the eastern border. As long as the eastern border didn't provoke them and throw out forbidden spells, the two sides could still live in peace and harmony. Therefore, the eastern border hadn't had a large-scale war for hundreds of years. Without the baptism of blood and fire, it was impossible to forge a true army of tigers and wolves. Therefore, the military strength of the eastern region, which had been peaceful for a long time, was basically at the bottom of the Radiance Empire. Fortunately, the northern frontier had to deal with the threat of the trolls. Most of the troops were deployed there, so they naturally wouldn't put too much pressure on the eastern frontier. Even the new Shui River had always been under the control of the eastern region. Now, if the Duke of St. Hilda was really trying to get his hands on the eastern region as Prince Okamoto had said, then the natural moat of the new Shui River would become the biggest obstacle for the army of the north. That's right, I don't understand naval warfare. Colin nodded and admitted. Then tell me, what does the half-elf kingdom have to do with naval warfare? I remember that the upper reaches of the Raging Water River aren't in the half-elf kingdom. Yes, the Raging Water River is indeed not within the half-elf kingdom. But Your Excellency Viscounts, do you know what the most important element of naval warfare is? Colin touched his chin, searching for all the examples of naval warfare in his memory. After a long while, he said in an uncertain tone, "Is it a boat?" But an ordinary boat obviously can't bear the task of crossing the river. So, to be more precise, what the Duke of St. Hilda needs is a powerful naval force. Colin thoughtfully said, "Could it be that the half-elf kingdom has a powerful navy?" Prince Okamoto smiled with a look of disdain. "The half-elf kingdom does have a navy, but with that navy, I estimate that it will be destroyed by the Eastern Navy in a single move." Colin was even more puzzled. Then why do you say that the half-elf kingdom is the key to invading the eastern region? Prince Okamoto picked up a branch on the ground, drew a simple map, and explained, "This is the new Shui River. It's more than 7,000 kilometers long. It seems that the army of the north can cross the river at any point. But in fact, it's impossible. The reason is what we just talked about, a boat. The army of the north must build a boat to cross the river, but the eastern army is not stupid. They can't just watch the northern frontier build a boat on the west bank of the new Shui River. At this time, the new Shui River is under the control of the eastern region. So, the northern frontier can't directly build a boat on the new Shui River. So, the Duke of St. Hilda's only choice is to find a river in the northern frontier and build a navy. However, this river wasn't chosen randomly. After all, it's impossible to let the soldiers carry a boat from the land to the new Shui River. So, this river must be connected to the new Shui River. At this time, if you carefully look at the map of the northern frontier, you will find that such a river is not impossible to find in the northern frontier, but they are too shallow and narrow to allow a large boat to pass through. But in the upper reaches of the new Shui River, there is such a river that meets the conditions, the Crystal River. And this Crystal River, Prince Okamoto used a branch to draw a circle on the ground, then heavily pointed and said in a deep voice, "It's in the territory of the half-elf kingdom." Hearing this, Colin suddenly understood. This is the same reason that the northern regime in China crossed the river to fight in ancient times. Originally, when Colin read the history books, he had some doubts. The Yangtze River is so long, where can't you cross it? Why does the northern regime always fight to the death at those few points? Just like when the Mongol cavalry went south, why did they have to attack Xiangyang? If you look at the map of China, you will find that Xiangyang is not on the Yangtze River. But there is another river next to it, the Han River. So, as long as you occupy Xiangyang, you will control the Han River. The Mongols can build boats in the Han River and then go downstream to the Yangtze River. This is the reason why the northern regime can't avoid this place every time they go south. In the lower reaches of the Yangtze River, there is a similar river and lake, the Chaohu Lake. Next to the Chaohu Lake is Hefei. Therefore, when Zhang Liao was guarding Hefei, Sun Quan couldn't sleep and eat well, and he sent troops to attack Hefei several times. In the end, he finally made a name for himself. In short, Colin finally understood the real intention of the Duke of St. Hilda. He married Vera to the half-elf kingdom because he wanted to use this opportunity to control the Crystal River so that he can build a navy and then go downstream to the new Shui River to invade the eastern region. However, Why is the Duke of St. Hilda so anxious to plot against the eastern region? This was especially true when the northern region already had a huge hidden threat. Is the Duke so sure that his brother won't betray him? Colin can only temporarily suppress this question in the bottom of his heart. But then he was puzzled again. Why is this guy Okamoto explaining this to me? Is he just trying to show off his knowledge? Although Colin has known this troll prince for a long time, he always felt that the other party should have other intentions this time. Why are you explaining this to me? Colin asked directly. Prince Okamoto smiled. Because I want you to know that the Duke didn't marry Vera to me, not because I'm not as good as the half-elf boy, but because the half-elf kingdom is the next strategic target of the northern frontier. Colin smiled. Of course, he didn't believe this kind of nonsense. How can a political creature like Okamoto care about such a small thing and explain it to Colin? Before Colin could continue to ridicule him, Prince Okamoto took out a badge and handed it to Colin. If you need any help in Silvermoon City, you can take this to the slave market in the west of the city and look for a merchant named Sith. Maybe he can help you in your trip to the half-elf kingdom more smoothly. Colin took the badge and at the same time, he was convinced in his heart. This troll prince really has other plans. Chapter 96. Colin suddenly smiled as he rubbed the emblem that Prince Okamoto had given him. This was because he had already realized what Okamoto wanted to do. It turns out that you want the northern frontier to smoothly control the half-elf kingdom. It would be best if you could cross the raging river and fight with the eastern frontier. This way, the Duke of St. Hilda would have no time to attack the northern frontier, and the giant demon empire would also gain some time to recuperate. Prince Okamoto smiled. He did not admit to Colin's guess, but he did not deny it either. Since the giant demon empire has already signed a peace agreement with the northern frontier, then we are all friends. If a friend needs help, of course I will help. Is that so? Colin looked at Prince Okamoto with a playful expression and asked, Then I wonder where this Sith friend is from? What is his status in Silvermoon City? What kind of help can he provide me? Prince Okamoto spread out his hands. Don't think too much. This Sith is just a half-elf merchant that I once knew. He should not be able to help you much. I saw that you are not familiar with the half-elf kingdom, so I wanted to introduce a local to you. Colin rolled his eyes. Obviously, he did not believe that Sith was just an ordinary half-elf merchant. But since Okamoto did not want to say, then he did not ask any more. Perhaps in Okamoto's opinion, Colin must have shouldered the important mission of the Duke to win over the half-elves. But in fact, Colin did not receive any instructions from the Duke at all. Moreover, he did not understand why the Duke had sent him to be the ambassador. However, no matter what the Duke's plan was, Colin's own plan was very clear. That was, he must stop Vera from marrying Prince Tup. Even if he had to turn Silvermoon City upside down, even if the half-elf kingdom completely leaned towards the eastern frontier, even if the northern frontier lost the opportunity to cross the raging river, he would not hesitate. As for the Duke of St. Hilda's plan, that had nothing to do with him. Now, the Duke of St. Hilda's image in Colin's mind had completely collapsed. A politician who was unscrupulous and full of schemes for benefits would never win Colin's respect, much less his loyalty. After completing his mission, Prince Okamoto's interest in chatting decreased significantly. He chatted with Colin for a while longer before leaving. It was late at night. Everyone in the camp had already gone to bed. Only a few sentries on duty were patrolling the perimeter. Prince Okamoto was still awake. Instead, he was staring at the chessboard in front of him, deep in thought. The chessboard was filled with black and white chess pieces. This was a game called Othello's chess. By flipping each other's chess pieces, the winner would be decided by who had more chess pieces on the board. Hence, it was also called flip chess. It was quite popular among the nobles of the Radiant Empire. At this moment, Prince Okamoto was playing Othello's chess. However, there was no one else in the tent. He was playing chess with himself. Prince Okamoto seemed to have encountered a problem. He rested his chin on one hand and stared at the chessboard in front of him. He did not make a move for a long time. After some time, there was a flash of light in the tent. There was a person in front of Prince Okamoto. He was wearing a loose black robe. It was as if he had been there all along. The black-robed man reached out and flipped a black chess piece on the bottom left corner of the chessboard, revealing the white chess piece on the reverse side. Prince Okamoto did not mind that the man interrupted his game. He looked at the sudden reversal of the situation on the chessboard and laughed. "Good job, Mr. Kue. It's just a small trick." Mr. Kue looked indifferent. Prince Okamoto scattered the chess pieces in his hand on the chessboard as if he was admitting defeat. "Sigh, this Othello's chess is still something you humans can play. I'll pass." Mr. Kue smiled and did not continue the conversation. Instead, he asked, "Did you introduce Sith to Viscount Angley?" Prince Okamoto nodded. Then he looked puzzled. "But I didn't get any information from Viscount Angley. It's as if that kid really knows nothing about the Duke of St. Hilda's plan." "That's normal. Viscount Angley is valued by both Marquis Garcia and the Duke of St. Hilda. Naturally, there's something special about him. It's impossible for you to find out about him so easily. If we don't know about the Duke of St. Hilda's plan, how should we deal with it? Don't you think it's a little inappropriate for us to expose him so quickly?" Mr. Kue looked at Prince Okamoto, who looked hesitant. He stretched out his hand and tapped twice on the chessboard. Then he said, "Your Highness, it's just like Othello's chess. If you don't know your opponent's intention and don't dare to place a chess piece, then you will definitely lose." "That makes sense." Prince Okamoto nodded. However, the doubt on his face did not completely disappear. He cleaned up the mess on the chessboard and invited Mr. Kue. "Mr. Kue, would you like to play another game with me?" Mr. Kue nodded slightly. "It's my pleasure." The tent became quiet again. Only the soft sound of the chess pieces falling on the chessboard could be heard. After a long time, Prince Okamoto stared at the chessboard and hesitated again. It seemed like he had encountered another difficult problem. "Mr. Kue, why do you think the Duke of St. Hilda sent Viscount Angley as his ambassador? I think that this Viscount seems to be unhappy with Vera. Isn't the Duke worried that he will ruin his plan?" Mr. Kue lowered his head and looked at the chessboard before he asked, "Your Highness, how do you know that Viscount Angley is not deliberately set up by the Duke of St. Hilda?" "Set up by the Duke?" Prince Okamoto was deep in thought. "Could it be that someone else is actually carrying out the Duke's plan?" Mr. Kue nodded and then shook his head. When Prince Okamoto saw this, he was even more puzzled. Just as he was about to ask more questions, Mr. Kue suddenly said, "Your Highness, do you know what the best strategy is when you don't know your opponent's intention?" "What is it?" "It's not a strategy." "Not a strategy?" "Yes." Mr. Kue raised his head and looked directly into Prince Okamoto's eyes. "It's a strategy where you play your game and I play mine. You don't have to guess what your opponent is trying to do. Instead, you just focus on perfecting your plan. Until the two sides are in close combat, then we will play each other's moves." Prince Okamoto rubbed the chess piece in his hand and he seemed to have finally understood something. After a while, he smiled and placed the chess piece on the chessboard before he praised, "Mr. Kue, you are really a master of chess. I think that with you around, the Half-Elf Kingdom's chess game will definitely be very exciting." Mr. Kue smiled bitterly and said, "Your Highness, the world is like a game of chess, but people are not chess pieces. They have their own thoughts, desires, and ambitions. They will not be manipulated like chess pieces. My previous plan in the northern frontier was ruined because of this, and it actually helped the Duke of St. Hilda a lot." Prince Okamoto quickly comforted him, "Mr. Kue, you don't have to blame yourself. Other than the gods, who else can really calculate everything?" Mr. Kue smiled and said, "Your Highness, you can rest assured that this small setback will not discourage me. Moreover, as I said, people are not chess pieces, and they will not be manipulated. I'm afraid that the Half-Elf Kingdom's chess game will exceed everyone's expectations." Prince Okamoto raised his head and looked at Mr. Kue thoughtfully. It was as if he thought of a certain unwilling viscounts. Then he smiled in agreement. Chapter 97. Autumn was the most beautiful season of the year in the Red Maple Forest. The Maple Forest, which was only a few dozen kilometers away from the Half-Elf Kingdom, Silver Moon City, had already turned into a sea of red at this time. At a glance, there were clusters of burning flames all over the mountains, as if they were going to burn the entire world. In the maple forest, a team composed of half-elves and humans was slowly moving forward. This was naturally the main character's entourage. They had already entered the territory of the half-elf kingdom and would probably arrive at Silver Moon City tomorrow. Prince Okamoto's entourage had already parted ways with them. Before parting ways, Prince Okamoto warmly invited Colin to visit the Troll King city when he was free. Colin naturally agreed with a chuckle. However, in fact, he was thinking in his heart, he was definitely not going to visit the Troll King city as a guest. He was more like a conqueror. The scenery along the way was getting more and more beautiful, but Vera's mood was getting worse and worse. The female mage had been cooped up in the carriage and refused to see anyone. Colin tried to ask to see her a few times, but he was always rejected. Even Vera's fiancé, Prince Tup, was treated the same way. At this time, he was standing in front of Vera's carriage and bowing to greet her. "Miss Vera, it's getting late. I don't think we will be able to reach Silver Moon City today. The Red Maple Manor is right in front of us. It is one of the properties of the House of Medea. Why don't you rest there for the night?" There was no movement in the carriage, and even the curtains were not opened. After a long time, he finally replied. It was a simple and concise reply. A trace of embarrassment and resentment flashed across Prince Tup's face, but he quickly hid it away. The half-elf prince, who liked to maintain his demeanor and elegance, bowed to Vera's carriage before he turned around and left. The entourage continued to move forward and finally arrived at the Red Maple Manor before sunset. As one of the oldest manors in the half-elf kingdom, the Red Maple Manor had a history of more than 800 years. The entire manor was located in the middle of the Red Maple Forest, covering an area of about 700 acres. The surrounding walls were made of solid limestone with vines crawling all over them. The buildings in the manor were solemn and exquisite, combining the characteristics of the buildings of the human and elf races. It was just that with the passage of time, it inevitably looked a little old. Of course, in the eyes of the nobles who valued history and inheritance, this was not a flaw. Apparently, the Red Maple Manor had already received the news that the envoy was about to arrive. At this time, they were welcoming Vera and her entourage with the grandest ceremony. Colin followed the team into the manor, looking around curiously. It had to be said that the half-elves had indeed inherited the elves' relentless pursuit of beautiful things. The entire manor was decorated exquisitely and elegantly. Even Vera, who had been hiding in the carriage for so many days, could not help but secretly lift the corner of the curtain to look outside. Colin stared at the lush green grass on the ground. He was very curious as to how the gnomes were able to keep the grass green in the late autumn season. "Miss Vera, Prince Tup, and Viscount Angley, dinner is ready. Please follow me." Under the guidance of the butler, everyone arrived at the dining room. The atmosphere during dinner was very depressing because Vera was in a low mood. Even though Prince Tup tried his best to liven up the atmosphere, it was still useless. After the awkward dinner, everyone returned to their rooms to rest. Colin wandered around the manor a few times in the name of visiting the manor. Halfway through, he caught a long-tailed kite and treated it as his dinner. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Colin finally returned to his room. As soon as he finished washing up and was about to go to bed, he heard someone knocking on his door. "Knights of Telda? It's already so late. What's the matter?" Colin opened the door and looked at the white-haired knight with a puzzled expression on his face. Turd Morgus was a family knight who was loyal to the Duke of St. Hilda. He was also the captain of the escort team. The Knights of Telda nodded slightly at Colin and said, "Viscounts, Miss Vera would like to see you." Colin blinked and nodded immediately. "Okay, lead the way." It was already late at night and the manor was very quiet. There was no one in sight. The more Colin walked, the more puzzled he became. This was because he did not even see a single guard on duty. However, he quickly realized that the guards who were originally on duty here belonged to the House of St. Hilda. He guessed that the Knights of Telda had already transferred them away in advance. So, what was Vera trying to do? Why was she being so mysterious? The both of them walked silently to the door of Vera's room. The Knights of Telda made a gesture to Colin before they quickly left. After the other party disappeared into the darkness, Colin knocked on the door with a puzzled expression on his face. "Miss Vera, it's me. Come in." Colin pushed the door open and entered the room. There were white curtains hanging all over the room and there was a white bearskin on the floor. There was a beautiful girl standing on top of the bearskin. Gulp, Colin swallowed his saliva. This was because Vera was too attractive tonight. She was only wearing a white silk nightgown and her exquisite curves were faintly discernible. Her golden hair was draped over her white shoulders and there was a trace of water vapor emitting from it. It was obvious that she had just finished bathing. A pair of ivory white feet stepped on the bearskin floor mat, glowing with a watery luster, filled with a strange charm. Vera, why are you looking for me?" In this situation, Colin couldn't even speak fluently. The girl's bright face was slightly flushed, but there was a firm light in her eyes. She slowly approached Colin and asked at the same time, "Colin, am I beautiful?" "Yes, of course you are beautiful." Colin looked at the girl's slender and beautiful legs that were exposed as she walked, and the blood in his body showed signs of going out of control. At this time, if it wasn't for the fact that he still didn't understand why Vera was looking for him, he would be too much of a straight man. Vera had already placed her trembling hands on Colin's chest and then raised her head. Her pink lips exuded a deadly temptation under the light of the magic lamp. Colin took a deep breath and did not hesitate any longer. He hugged the girl in his arms and said solemnly, "Don't worry, I will not let you marry that half-elf." Vera's body trembled slightly, but she immediately shook her head. "No, Colin. I will marry Prince Tup. This is my duty as a Saint Hilda. However, I just want to give you everything that is good about me before I enter that cage." "No. You can only marry me." Colin sounded as if he had been possessed by a domineering Sio at this time. "Colin?" Vera wanted to persuade him again, but the domineering man blocked her mouth. The girl's heart suddenly beat faster and her mind went blank. Boom! There was a flash of lightning outside the house, and it started to rain. The bean-sized raindrops hit the closed windows and made a pitter-patter sound. Chapter 98. The bright morning light shone on the red maple manor, and the crystal-clear dewdrops emitted a little bit of light like pure diamonds, decorating the elegant manor like a fairyland. After the heavy rain, the air was extraordinarily fresh, and the fragrance of flowers and plants filled the air. Colin took a deep breath and faced the rising sun as he stretched his body. He felt refreshed. "Good morning, Your Highness Prince Tup." "Good morning, Your Excellency Viscount Angley. You seem to be in a good mood today." Prince Tup looked at Colin's smiling face and felt a little strange. Ever since Vera's coming-of-age ceremony, although the two of them did not draw their swords at each other, they certainly did not treat each other well. Of course. This is all thanks to your hospitality." Colin smiled sincerely. "It is my pleasure to satisfy your Excellency Viscounts." Prince Tup felt that Colin was a little too enthusiastic today, but he did not care much. He felt that as the winner, he should be more tolerant. The half-elf prince had obviously dressed up today, and he was wearing a luxurious suit. In particular, the green thorny crown on his head attracted Colin's attention. Prince Tup seemed to have noticed that Colin was staring at the crown of his head, so he touched the thorny crown and explained. "This is a tradition of the half-elf kingdom. When the royal family enters Silver Moon City, they have to wear a thorny crown to symbolize responsibility and sacrifice." Oh, Colin held back his laughter. "It is indeed very beautiful. Do you know that in my hometown, green symbolizes luck? Is that so? Thank you for your blessing. I will go and say hello to Miss Vera. Please help yourself." Prince Tup walked past Colin, but after a few steps, he turned around and reminded him, "Oh, by the way, you have to be careful when you walk around the garden today." "What's wrong?" "I am afraid that a beast has broken in." "Beast?" "Yes. Last night, a long-tailed kite's throat was bitten and its blood was sucked dry. I don't know what kind of beast did it." "That's too bad." Colin pretended to sigh. Prince Tup's face was also full of resentment. "Ai, that long-tailed kite is Mother's beloved pet. She'll be sad for a long time now. That damnable beast. When I find it, I'll definitely tear it into pieces." "Yes, you damned beast." Colin cursed naturally. It was as if the long-tailed kite had nothing to do with him. Then I'll go to the front hall to eat first. Good luck. After bidding farewell to Prince Tup, Colin hummed a tune and walked briskly to the dining room. There was already a person sitting at the long table in the hall. Good morning, Lord Viscounts. Good morning, Knights of Telda. Colin felt that there was something wrong with the way the Knight of the House of St. Hilda was looking at him. However, he still sat down and ate his breakfast as usual. The breakfast was very sumptuous. Colin ate very perfunctorily. Just as he was about to leave after stuffing some food into his stomach, Prince Tup also came into the hall. Miss Vera is not feeling well. Therefore, I am afraid that we will not be able to leave today. As soon as they heard Prince Tup's words, the Knights of Telda looked at Colin even more strangely. However, Colin, the culprit, did not seem to be aware of it at all. He even asked with a worried expression on his face, "Is Miss Vera okay?" "She should be fine. I guess that she was disturbed by the thunderstorm last night and did not sleep well," Prince Tup replied casually. He did not notice the strange expression on the Knights of Telda's face. "Please don't worry. I will arrange for a priest to check on Miss Vera. Thank you for your concern. This is what I should do." After Prince Tup left, the Knights of Telda smiled at Colin and said, "Viscount Angley, the rain last night was a little heavy." Colin smiled and nodded as if he did not understand the meaning of the other party's words. "Indeed, I did not sleep well last night." Before the Knights of Telda could speak again, a guilty guy quickly put down his knife and fork and got up to leave. "Then I will go back to sleep first. Please continue." Therefore, because of Vera's health, the delegation stayed at the Red Maple Manor for one more day. On the third day, they set off again. The half-elf prince was still dressed in a splendid outfit with a green thorny halo on his head. "Good morning, Your Highness. Did you catch that damn beast?" "Good morning, Your Highness Viscounts." Prince Tup shook his head. "Not yet. Also, another poodle was killed last night. It is too hateful." "What?" Colin was shocked. "This is too much. I have already strengthened the manor's guards. If that beast dares to come out tonight, I will definitely not let it escape." "Yes, it will definitely not be able to escape." Colin nodded seriously and then gently squeezed the horse's belly. "Let's go, Your Highness." "Okay." That afternoon, the delegation successfully arrived at Silver Moon City. If Ice Stone City was a prosperous trading city at the border, and Winter City was a majestic city of kings, then Silver Moon City was a beautiful garden city. This ancient city had experienced thousands of years of wind and rain. Since its establishment, it had always been the political, economic, and cultural center of the Half-Elf Kingdom. It was known as the Holy City of the Half-Elves. In order to make it beautiful, the Half-Elves had put in a lot of effort. Needless to say, there were all kinds of exquisitely carved buildings. Even the empty corners of the streets were planted with flowers and trees by the half-elves. This garden city was constantly in the minds of many wandering poets. They spread its beauty and tranquility everywhere, causing its name to spread throughout the continent. However, the result of paying too much attention to its beautiful appearance was that Silver Moon City's military value could be said to be almost non-existent. For example, the city walls wrapped in wisteria. Although they looked beautiful when it came to war, they were simply ladders for the attackers to climb. As for the crystal city gate that shone with a rainbow light under the sunlight, Colin was very doubtful that it could withstand a round of attacks from the heavy cavalry. In reality, Colin was overthinking it. The city walls and gates of Silver Moon City looked very fragile, but they had never been destroyed in war. This was because every time the enemy attacked Silver Moon City, the city would very straightforwardly surrender without a fight. In the words of the half-elves, "We cannot bear to see this beautiful city go through the flames of war." Thus, although Silver Moon City was a beautiful vase that would break with a touch, it had perfectly preserved the masterpieces of the half-elves' past generations of architects. It could be said to be a miracle in the history of cultural heritage preservation. The person who came to welcome them at the city gate was the Prime Minister of the Half-Elf Kingdom, Duke Muller. "Respected Viscount Angley, welcome. The King and Queen Consort have been waiting in the palace for a long time. Your Excellency, "You are too polite." Colin casually bowed to Duke Muller, naturally revealing a trace of arrogance. At this moment he represented the northern frontier of the empire. Naturally, there was no need for him to be too polite to the Duke of a vassal kingdom. Of course, Duke Muller did not blame him. As the Prime Minister of a small kingdom, he had already learned to bow down in front of the ambassador of a large kingdom. After bowing to Prince Tup, Duke Muller finally turned his gaze to Vera's carriage, as if he wanted to greet Vera in person. Unfortunately, Vera did not seem to have any intention of coming out to meet him. Just as Duke Muller was feeling awkward, Colin's voice sounded from the front. "Your Excellency, please lead the way. We cannot let His Majesty wait for too long." Yes. Please follow me." Chapter 99. Under the welcome of the half-elves, the bridal party arrived at the half-elven palace in the center of Silver Moon City. Although the half-elven palace was magnificent and the half-elf king was standing in front of the palace gate, Colin's eyes were still fixed on a woman. It was the half-elf queen consort. She was a tall and slim half-elf girl with a dreamy face. Her demeanor was dignified and elegant. She was supporting the old half-elf king with both of her hands. Everyone who saw her could not help but sigh. She was really a flower in a cow dung. Colin quickly withdrew his slightly rude gaze and bowed to the king and queen consort. At the same time, he cursed in his heart. It was no wonder that queen consort needed to adopt a son. The half-elf king looked like he could not even stand properly. It was impossible for him to make the young and beautiful queen consort pregnant. At this time, Vera finally came out of the carriage and bowed to the king. Vera did not dress up today. She was only wearing a simple white dress with no other accessories on her body. There was only a small badge of the House of St. Hilda on her left chest. On such a grand occasion, Vera's attire was actually very impolite. However, no one dared to criticize her. The girl stood in front of the half-elven palace without any expression on her face. It was as if she was silently protesting against fate. "Miss Vera Angeli, Viscounts, please don't be so polite." The half-elf king's tone was very light and it was as if a gust of wind could blow him away. "Distinguished guests, please come into the palace. We have prepared a sumptuous feast to welcome all of you." A middle-aged half-elf man walked out from behind the king and bowed to Colin and the others. "His Highness Prince William is right. Please come in," Duke Muller quickly persuaded. At the same time, he also pointed out the identity of the middle-aged man. It was the half-elf king and the late queen consort's son, first Prince William Morduin. Colin felt that the reason why the first prince and Duke Muller were in such a hurry to let everyone into the palace was probably because they were worried that the old king would suddenly die after standing outside for too long. Therefore, he followed her advice and led Vera into the half-elven palace. The half-elves, who loved beauty so much, naturally wouldn't be stingy with their own palace. Along the way, Colin saw that every place in his line of sight was decorated with gold and jade, brimming with a luxurious aura. Even the House of St. Hilda's Lion's Roar Fort couldn't compare to this place in this aspect. They walked through a long corridor and arrived at the banquet hall. A long table was placed on the dark red carpet. The table was covered with a navy blue scarf, and there was a blood rose unique to the half-elf kingdom on it. The faint fragrance of the flowers permeated the air, making people feel relaxed and happy. Tall half-elf maids shuttled through the hall like butterflies and led everyone to their respective seats one by one. Colin stepped on the thick carpet, and the soft and comfortable feeling made him feel as if he was walking on clouds. After sitting down in his seat, he squinted his eyes and looked at the crystal chandelier on the ceiling. There were 8 crystal chandeliers with a diameter of 3 meters. The magic energy emitted from the chandelier illuminated every corner of the banquet hall as if it was daytime. Lowering his head, he saw a variety of exquisite dishes and expensive wines placed in front of him. Even the tableware was made of pure gold and engraved with the emblem of the House of Media. Too damn rich. Colin couldn't help but recall the information about the half-elves in the memory of his predecessor. Together with the gnomes, they were known as the 2 races that were the best at doing business in the world. If the gnomes were to become famous because of their talent in business, Then the half-elves were to rely on women to do business. That's right, the half-elves were famous for their beauty, and by sending women to the various powers, the half-elves quickly spread out a network of connections that covered every corner of the continent, bringing countless riches back to Silver Moon City. However, these riches would of course attract covetous gazes. Thus, the half-elves decisively sought refuge with the Radiant Empire, paying large amounts of tribute every year in exchange for the protection of the Empire. With the Empire as their godfather, the half-elves simply lay flat. The military in the country was extremely lax, and the total number of soldiers in the country was only 50,000. It was said that their battle prowess was also extremely weak. There was no other way. With so much money, who would be willing to risk their lives on the battlefield? Just as Colin was thinking about these things, the banquet had already begun. The old king was still using that kind of voice to give a vague toast, making Colin feel drowsy. The entire banquet was extremely boring. Vera adhered to the principle that silence was golden. Unless she was forced to answer, she would occasionally reply with words like okay, yes, and so on. This was not the state that a woman who was about to marry into the half-elven royal family should be in. However, not only did the members of the Madowan royal family not dare to complain, they also had to try their best to find topics to talk about so that the atmosphere would not be too awkward. Colin felt tired for them as he looked at them. The atmosphere at the main table was so tense, and of course, the other half-elven nobles at the other tables did not dare to make any noise. The entire banquet hall was almost filled with the sound of knives and forks hitting the plates. When the banquet was finally over, the maids removed the long table. Melodious music sounded, and the ball began. However, the atmosphere was still extremely awkward. Vera stood there like a wooden person, ignoring everyone. Prince Tup, who was next to her, was so angry that his face turned green, but he still had to maintain a smile. Colin did not dare to ask Vera for a dance at this time. Otherwise, the exasperated Prince Tup would throw a white glove at him again. However, there were many half-elven noble girls surrounding Colin. Apparently, they had heard that this Viscount Angley from the northern frontier was still unmarried, and they had come to try their luck. Looking at the beautiful faces around him, Colin could only smile bitterly and refuse them one by one. He always felt that Vera's gaze was intentionally or unintentionally sweeping over him, and it made him feel a chill down his spine. Moreover, to be honest, he was really not interested in these half-elven noble girls. Although they were not bad-looking, they might not be as beautiful as Vera. As for their status, they were naturally not as good. Half-elf beauties had always been known as the best lover. However, it was also only a lover and not a wife. Any clear-headed human noble was very clear that a half-elven beauty could only be a lover, and they could not really marry her. The reason was very simple. The title of nobility in the Empire of Light could only be inherited by a pure-blooded human. Therefore, in the face of the half-elven girl's enthusiasm, Colin had no choice but to politely decline. Since the two distinguished guests did not give him any face, the atmosphere of the banquet naturally could not be lively. On the other hand, the old half-elven king actually fell asleep on his chair. Therefore, just after 8 o'clock, Queen Consort announced the end of the banquet early. "I'm really sorry that the banquet was not enjoyable for both of you." Looking at Queen Consort, who personally came forward to apologize, Colin smiled and waved his hand. "Your Highness Queen Consort is too polite. In fact, we are also tired from the long journey, and we were just thinking of resting early." "Okay, Tup, send the two distinguished guests to rest." "Yes." After sending off Vera and Colin, Queen Consort stepped forward and tried to help the sleeping king. "Mother, let me do it." Prince William took the initiative to speak. "Okay, you can send His Majesty back to rest. I will send the guests off." "Okay." Prince William supported the king, who was sleeping soundly, as he walked back to the king's bedroom. "All of you can leave now." Prince William placed the king on the bed in the bedroom and waved his hand at the servants behind him. When the door of the bedroom was closed again, the sleeping king suddenly opened his eyes. He agilely got up, no longer looking like an old man on the verge of death. Chapter 100. Prince William did not seem surprised at all when he saw the old king's expression. It was as if this was how it should be. The half-elf king was no longer as weak as he was before. Instead, his tone became sonorous and powerful as he asked Prince William, "What do you think about your brother marrying the adopted daughter of the Dukes of the North? I will listen to your arrangements." Prince William lowered his head as if he did not dare to look into his father's eyes. As the second son, Tup was actually marrying the adopted daughter of the Dukes of the North. This matter obviously made Prince William a little uncomfortable. However, Prince William did not dare to express his dissatisfaction. "I am asking for your opinion." The half-elf king did not seem to intend to let his eldest son off so easily. "I have no opinion." Smack. The old king quickly waved the scepter in his hand and hit Prince William's knee heavily. Prince William screamed as he knelt down in front of the king. "Father, I really do not dare to complain." "Idiot!" The old king shouted angrily. "Do you really think that I was the one who arranged for Tup to go to the northern frontier to marry Vera?" Speak." "I do not know." Smack. 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 The old king kept waving the scepter in his hand and hitting Prince William's back like raindrops. Poor William did not dare to resist at all. He could only silently endure and let out a few screams from time to time as if he was trying to gain his father's sympathy. After a long time, the old king finally got tired of hitting his son. He sat back on the bed and panted as he scolded his son. "You do not know? You are the future king of the half-elf tribe and the future leader of the half-elf tribe. How can you tell me that you do not know? Are you going to wait until the enemy is in front of you and the half-elf tribe is about to be destroyed? When the courtiers ask you what you should do, you will only say, 'Do you not have any opinion? Do you not know? You are not responsible at all. You are not smart at all. If it weren't for the fact that you're my only bloodline, I would have crippled you long ago.'" Faced with the old king's reprimand, Prince William shivered as he prostrated himself on the ground, not daring to move. But what he didn't know was that such a cowardly attitude would only make his father even angrier. The old king looked at his son and sighed. He did not speak for a long time. Prince William, who was prostrating on the ground, waited for a long time, but his father did not continue. He carefully raised his head. Then he saw his father's cold and deep gaze. It was a gaze he had never seen before. For some reason, Prince William suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of panic. It was as if something important in his life had left him. But before he could ask, the old king spoke again. "William, tell me, what is the way for the House of Medea to survive? Hold on tight to your chips." Prince William hurriedly answered, as if a weak student had finally found a question that he knew how to answer. "Then tell me, this way of survival, what does it mean?" Prince William hurriedly searched his guts and replied carefully after a long while, "It means that we have to hold on tight to our chips and not place bets easily." "Why not place bets easily?" The old king continued to ask expressionlessly. Prince William was stunned. "Why did you give me an additional question?" Prince William immediately swallowed the words, "I don't know," that were at the tip of his tongue. He felt that if he dared to say that, he would definitely be beaten up again. "I think it's just that we have to be careful when placing bets." The poor Prince William held back for a long time, but could not come up with a reason. The light in the old king's eyes dimmed even more. Helpless, he could only patiently explain, "Two giants are fighting. You are just a weak dwarf. If you dare to overestimate yourself and join the battle, you will only end up with your body crushed to pieces. So, your best choice is to watch from the sidelines. No matter how the giants threaten or tempt you, before the situation is clear, you cannot easily join the battle. You do not have many chips in your hands, but they are crucial. As long as you do not place bets easily, they will become more and more important. As long as you do not help either side, both sides will need to rope you in. You'll be able to take advantage of this opportunity to strike from both sides, and you'll have more room to maneuver and maneuver. Do you understand?" "Yes, I understand." Prince William hurriedly nodded. It was not clear if he really understood, or if he just wanted to lie to escape his father's blame. The old king's expression seemed to be a little disappointed. This was the racial proverb of the House of Medea. It implied how much blood, tears, and suffering the half-elves had suffered. It also carried the weight of many shameful and dirty transactions. Unfortunately, the old king sighed and asked again, "So, now that we are stuck between the northern frontier and the eastern frontier, do you know what to do?" "I know. As long as they do not have a winner, we will not take sides, and will not place bets." "Yes." There was finally a smile on the old king's face. It seemed as though he felt that his son was not so stupid that he could not be saved. "Then, think about it again. Was it really my arrangement for Tup to marry Vera?" Prince William was smart this time. He shook his head repeatedly and said, "No, father, you are so wise. Why would you place a bet on the northern frontier at this critical moment?" When he saw the old king slowly nodding his head, Prince William's confidence was greatly boosted. "So, this matter is my brother's own decision?" The old king's face flashed with a trace of anger. "Of course, that bitch is also adding fuel to the fire." Prince William did not dare to answer this time. This was because he knew that the bitch that the old king was referring to was Queen Consort. Although the relationship between the half-elven king and Queen Consort was very harmonious to outsiders, William knew very well that ever since Queen Consort married into the royal family, his father had been dissatisfied with her. On the matter of adopting Prince Tupe, the two of them almost turned against each other. The old king, who valued bloodline inheritance, had never regarded Prince Tupe as his own son, even though legally speaking he was indeed the king's son. If it were not for the fact that Queen Consort was from the Miller family, the king would have abolished her a long time ago. Now, Queen Consort seemed to want to use Tup's marriage to Vera to win over the Dukes of the North. This kind of disregard for the overall situation had obviously completely angered the old king, who was determined to maintain a neutral position and play a balance between the eastern and northern frontier. In a few days, the eastern frontier should send a messenger over. When the time comes, you should go and receive them. Yes. Remember, no matter how the eastern frontier tries to win over you, you should not participate in it personally. Provide them with some necessary convenience and let them fight with the northern frontier. I understand. After saying so much, the old king seemed to be tired, so he waved his hand and motioned Prince William to leave. Prince William immediately bowed and said goodbye, but before he could walk out of the bedroom, the king called him again. "By the way, what about the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce that I asked you to investigate last time?" "I have checked. There is no problem with the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. They pay the business tax on time and according to the amount." "Idiot." The old king was angry again. "Did I ask you to investigate their tax evasion?" Prince William was dumbfounded. The old king gasped for breath for a long time before he finally calmed down and waved his hand disappointedly. "Continue to investigate." Prince William trembled in fear. "How is little Charlie doing recently?" Hearing the king ask about his son, Prince William's face involuntarily showed a smile. "The little guy is doing very well. Recently, he has begun to learn swordsmanship, but he is too naughty. The flowers and plants in the palace have suffered. Send him to me tomorrow and accompany me for a while." Prince William did not suspect anything and nodded repeatedly. "Yes, father." At this moment, the sound of light footsteps could be heard from outside the palace. Prince William turned around and saw his father lying down on the bed with agile movements. He fell asleep in a second. "William, is His Majesty asleep?" Queen Consort came in and asked in a low voice. "Yes, he fell asleep as soon as he came back." "Well, you can go back too." Chapter 101. Sir, do you need a half-elf female slave? Our company has recently trained a batch of them, and they are of excellent quality. Do you want to take a look? Colin had just walked to the entrance of the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce when he was approached by a salesman. "I'm here to look for someone." "May I know who you're looking for?" "A merchant named Sith." "Do you know him?" "May I know why you're looking for our president?" Colin's eyebrows twitched. He did not expect that the first company he met after entering the slave market would have someone he was looking for. Moreover, the person that Prince Okamoto introduced was the president of a rather large company. Seeing the salesman's cautious expression, Colin took out the token that Okamoto gave him. The salesman took the badge, but the suspicion on his face did not fade away. It was obvious that he did not recognize this token. Please wait for a moment, I'll go in and ask for you. Not long after, the salesman returned, and behind him was a skinny, tall, middle-aged half-elf man. May I know if you are Sir Viscount Angley? Yes. And you are? I am Sith. Prince Okamoto has already told me about you. Please come in. Colin nodded and followed Sith into the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. After passing through the bustling lobby, Sith led Colin to a quiet courtyard. The courtyard was filled with roses, and under the gentle breeze, the elegant fragrance of the flowers wafted over. In the middle of the flowers, there was a pavilion. Sith led Colin to the pavilion and asked respectfully, Sir Viscounts, what would you like to drink? A waiter immediately brought over 2 mugs. The coffee inside was still steaming. Sith waved his hand and the attendant immediately retreated, leaving the room to Colin and Sith. Welcome to Silver Moon City, respected Viscount Angley. If you need anything here, please feel free to let me know. Colin took a sip of coffee. After that, he didn't bother to be courteous with Sith and asked directly, tell me about the situation of the major forces in Silver Moon City. Sith laughed and said, what force are you talking about? I've been doing business for decades, so I'm quite familiar with the power of the half-elves. I'm talking about political power. Colin rolled his eyes and interrupted the half-elf merchant who was playing dumb. Lord Viscounts, if it's about political power, I'm just a small merchant, how would I know anything about it? Colin looked at Sith playfully before pointing at the roses in the courtyard. These are all blood roses, right? If Lord Viscounts likes it, I can give you a batch. I'm not interested in flowers. Colin shook his head and smiled. However, I heard that Queen Aisha's favorite flower is blood roses. Yes. The entire Silver Moon City knows about this. Then tell me about Queen Aisha. All right. This time, Sith didn't refuse. Queen Aisha was born in the Miller family and is Duke Muller's youngest daughter, half-elf Prime Minister Duke Muller. Colin suddenly thought of the half-elf who had welcomed him at the city gate. Yes, Sith nodded and continued. Queen Aisha married into the royal family 3 years ago. Hearing that it was 3 years ago, Colin immediately became alert. He suddenly thought of the plan that the Duke of St. Hilda and Marquis Garcia came up with to eliminate threats from the northern frontier. Wasn't it 3 years ago? Was this a coincidence? Or, Sith continued, because His Majesty the King was getting old and couldn't get Queen Consort pregnant. A year ago, he chose a young man from the Miller family to be his adopted son. That was the second prince, Tup. Wait. Colin immediately interrupted. You're saying that Prince Tup was chosen from the Miller family and not the half-elf house of Medea? Yes. Sith nodded in confirmation. Colin laughed coldly. What was this Miller family trying to do? Queen Consort belonged to their family. Even the king's adopted son belonged to their family. Even if Tup had changed his surname to Mo-Diwan, would the old king really acknowledge an outsider? Could it be that Duke Miller wanted to play the game of a turtle dove occupying a magpie's nest? What about the first prince, William? Colin asked again. Prince William is the biological son of His Majesty the King and the previous Queen Consort. Which family did the previous Queen Consort come from? The Lute family. A dignified face flashed through Colin's mind. At the banquet last night, the Duke of Lute was sitting at the main table. Then the current Duke of Lute is the previous Queen Consort's son? Colin asked again. Brother, does the Duke of Lute hold any position in the palace? The Duke of Lute is the commander of the Silver Moon Guard. Colin nodded. He had a rough idea of the political situation in the half-elf kingdom. In his opinion, the high-level forces in the kingdom were mainly divided into 2 factions. The second prince's faction was centered around Queen Consort, Prince Tup, and Duke Muller. The second prince's faction was centered around the king, Prince William, and the Duke of Lute. However, now it seemed that the first prince's faction had the upper hand. After all, the first prince's succession was before Prince Tup, and he also had the help of the king. In addition, the kingdom's most elite army was still in the hands of his uncle, the Duke of Lute. It was no wonder that Prince Tup wanted to go to the northern frontier to marry Vera. Without the help of external forces, the current Prince Tup would not be able to fight against his brother. So, how was the Duke of St. Hilda going to push the disadvantaged Prince Tup to the throne? How was he going to take control of the half-elf kingdom and get the key to enter the eastern region? What about the eastern region? They would certainly not sit back and watch the half-elf kingdom fall into the hands of the northern frontier. So, how were they going to deal with it? There was also Sith. Colin certainly did not believe that this guy was a simple businessman. He did not know what role Prince Okamoto was going to play in the battle for Silvermoon City. As for Colin himself, he was afraid that he was still just a chess piece on this complicated chessboard. However, in order to prevent Vera from marrying the half-elf prince, Colin felt that he had to become a chess player. During the previous journey, he had already outlined a plan. However, he needed a breakthrough. "Are you a knight?" Colin licked his sharp canine teeth and suddenly asked. Sith was obviously stunned. Apparently, he did not expect Colin to ask him such a question. "You must be joking. I am just a small businessman. How can I be qualified to be baptized and become a noble knight?" Colin was a little disappointed and asked again. "Then, there should be quite a few knights in the half-elf royal family, right?" "Of course. It is the long-cherished wish of every half-elf noble to serve the god of light." This was true. Although Silvermoon City also had a Church of the Goddess of Destiny, under the influence of the Empire of Light, the Church of the God of Light was more lively. The first profession of the half-elf noble was naturally a knight, not a ranger. His Majesty the King was once a 4th-grade knight. Her Highness Queen Consort and the 2 princes were also knights. Also, there is the Duke of Loot. Hearing the prominent names coming out of Sith's mouth, Colin revealed an excited smile. "Well, let's stop here today. I still have something to do, so I will take my leave first." "Okay, you are welcome to visit any time. I will send you out." The two of them walked all the way out. When they reached the entrance of the Chamber of Commerce, they met a group of fully armed guards. Colin looked at the familiar face of the leader and said in surprise, "Prince William?" Chapter 102. Viscount Angley? "Why you here?" Colin paused for a moment, then blurted out, "I'm here to look at the half-elf female slaves." "I see." Prince William was enlightened, then revealed a flirtatious smile that all men understood. "Then you should be looking for me. The best half-elf female slaves in Silvermoon City are all with me." Colin blinked. He felt that the eldest prince's words were a little silly. "It's all right, I'm just looking around. I don't have to buy anything." Colin quickly changed the topic. "May I know why you're here?" "I'm here to investigate this Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce." The honest Prince William said, "We received a report that this Chamber of Commerce is committing tax evasion." "I'm innocent." "Your Highness." Sith immediately cried out. "Didn't you just come here to investigate a while ago?" "We are law-abiding citizens. We definitely didn't commit tax evasion. Whether you did or not, we'll know once we investigate." Prince William ignored Sith and waved his hand behind him. Instantly, a group of ferocious half-elf guards rushed forward and carried Sith into the Chamber of Commerce. "I'm sorry, Your Highness Viscounts. I'm busy with work. I'm afraid I won't be able to accompany you." "It's all right, you do what you need to do. I'll just look around." Colin was about to bid farewell to Prince William, but as he took a step forward, he suddenly had an idea. He turned around and said, "Your Highness, I might have some clues about this Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce." Prince William stopped in his tracks. "However, this isn't a clue about tax evasion." "It's all right, tell me." Prince William's eyes lit up, and he became even more excited. When Colin saw the other party's reaction, he immediately realized that the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce had long been targeted by the House of Medea. Tax evasion was just an excuse for a search. "I just saw a sneaky giant demon inside, so I suspect that this Chamber of Commerce might be in cahoots with the giant demon empire." Colin sold Okamoto out without any psychological burden. He felt that this Sith should be a spy that the trolls had planted in the half-elf kingdom. It was very likely that he wanted to take advantage of the confrontation between the northern frontier and the eastern frontier to reap the benefits. Of course, Colin didn't want the trolls to get what they wanted. Therefore, he asked Prince William to test this Sith. At the same time, it would also make the water in Silvermoon City even more muddy. This would make it easier for him to fish in troubled waters. I see. Prince William came to a sudden realization. He finally understood why his father wanted him to investigate this Chamber of Commerce. Viscount Angley, thank you very much for your information. I will definitely visit you to thank you someday. Oh, by the way, didn't you want to buy a half-elf slave? I will go back and give you the best slave I have. No, you are too polite. After bidding farewell to the overly enthusiastic Prince William, Colin returned to the palace alone. Vera's wedding was in half a month, so he had nothing to do at the moment. He wanted to find Vera to talk about life, but he gave up halfway. After all, this was the half-elven palace, not the Red Maple Manor. The palace was guarded by the Silver Moon Guard, and they couldn't be sent away. If they found out that something was wrong, it would be troublesome. Therefore, Colin began to stroll around the palace. As he walked, he suddenly smelled a familiar fragrance. Following the fragrance, Colin walked into an open-air garden. The garden was full of bloody roses, and it looked like a sea of flames. Colin walked closer to one of the roses and looked at it carefully, as if he was trying to distinguish whether these bloody roses were the same species as the ones he saw in the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. Viscount Angley? An elegant and slightly magnetic voice suddenly sounded. Colin was shocked, and when he turned his head, he saw Queen Aisha squatting in the middle of the flowers. She was wearing a fiery red dress, and she perfectly blended in with the bloody roses. It was no wonder that Colin didn't notice her existence before. Your Highness Queen Consort, I am sorry that I didn't see you when I came in. Queen Aisha waved her hand, indicating that Colin didn't need to be so polite. She slowly walked towards Colin, a charming smile on her beautiful face. Your Highness Viscounts also likes bloody roses? Colin also stood up straight, but he lowered his head slightly, avoiding Queen Consort's gaze. Yes, after all, no one doesn't like beautiful things. Then do you know? The most beautiful bloody roses need to be watered with fresh blood. As she spoke, Queen Aisha had already arrived beside Colin. A faint fragrance kept drilling into Colin's nose, tugging at his heartstrings. Is that so? No wonder it's called Bloody Rose. Colin rubbed his itchy nose and said with a smile. Queen Aisha casually plucked a bloody rose, put it at the tip of her nose, and nodded. That's right. Moreover, the more powerful the practitioner's blood, the more beautiful the bloody rose will be. Colin's heart skipped a beat, and he thought to himself, isn't that very similar to me? Maybe he could also add the bloody rose to the new family emblem. Just as Colin was thinking, Queen Consort had already inserted the bloody rose into her hair, and then tilted her head to look at Colin, and asked slightly abruptly, Am I beautiful? Colin was stunned, and turned his head to look at Queen Aisha, who had a charming expression and nodded, of course. But at the same time, a trace of vigilance rose in his heart. Queen Aisha smiled, as if she was a young girl in love who had been praised by her lover. I heard that you also proposed to Miss Vera in the Lion's Roar Castle, right? Yes. Sigh, I have also experienced the pain of not being able to get the one you love. Queen Aisha's beautiful eyes were filled with a trace of pity, as if she really felt the same way about Colin. Colin raised his head and looked directly into the eyes of the beautiful Queen Consort, and suddenly smiled. Your Highness must be joking, aren't you already married to the person you love? Do you really think so? Queen Aisha's face showed a complicated smile. Colin did not speak. He did not understand why Queen Consort was telling him these things. Queen Aisha seemed to see the vigilance in Colin's eyes, and she sighed, I know that you don't trust me. However, I can see that Miss Vera is actually not willing to marry Tup. You should be Miss Vera's real lover. Your Highness, you must be joking, Colin said. He did not want to give this woman any information that could be used against him. I am not joking. Queen Aisha had a serious expression on her face. Moreover, if possible, I even hope that you can take Miss Vera away with you. Colin smiled, and he ignored Queen Consort's nonsense. Although he really thought so, Queen Aisha would not help him take Vera away. According to Colin's understanding of the situation in Silvermoon City, Queen Aisha should be one of the people who wanted Prince Tup to marry Vera the most. This way, the Miller family behind her would be able to get the support of the northern frontier and then realize their dream of taking over the magpie's nest. Therefore, Colin always felt that Queen Consort was testing him by telling him these things. Could it be that she saw something? Or did the Duke of St. Hilda say something to the Miller family? Your Highness, I suddenly remembered that there is something that I have not done yet. So, I will take my leave first. Colin was ready to leave quickly. After Colin left, Queen Consort took off the blood rose that she had just inserted into her hair and gently crushed it. Then, she opened her palm and let the fine petals fall one by one. If you are still alive, do you dare to take me away? A breeze blew, and Queen Aisha's murmur was carried away. Chapter 103. After leaving the garden, Colin was still wondering why Queen Aisha had said those words to him. He didn't notice a half-elf maid walking towards him. The maid was holding a huge potted plant. Her line of sight was blocked, so she didn't notice Colin. It was only when the two of them almost bumped into each other that Colin realized that there was someone in front of him. He quickly dodged, but the maid was so shocked that she screamed. Ah! Sorry. No. Lord Viscounts, it's my fault. The maid obviously recognized Colin. She quickly put down the potted plant and kept apologizing. It's fine. Colin waved his hand and was about to leave. But after taking a few steps, he seemed to have thought of something. He turned back and called out to the maid, Are you in charge of the garden? Yes, Lord Viscounts. Are you the one who cultivated those blood roses? No, I don't have that ability. The maid shook her head. These blood roses are specially bought from outside. Then do you know where I bought those blood roses in the garden? I like those flowers, so I wanted to buy some for myself. The Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. The maid said a name that Colin was familiar with. It's in the slave market in the west of the city. This Chamber of Commerce can cultivate the best blood roses in the entire Silver Moon City. All right, thank you. You're too polite. The maid bowed. Seeing that Colin had no other orders, she left. Colin looked at the maid's back as she left, and suddenly fell into deep thought. This strange Queen Aisha was indeed related to the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. But, was their relationship really only related to the blood roses? Did Queen Aisha know Sith? Or even Prince Okamoto? Could it be that Prince Okamoto was actually a supporter of the Second Prince's faction? But why did the giant demon empire extend their hands into the half-elf kingdom? What benefits could they gain here? Also, why would a half-elf like Sith rely on the giant demons? A series of questions swirled in Colin's mind. He suddenly felt that the situation in Silver Moon City was getting interesting. Colin revealed an excited smile and turned to walk back to his residence. However, even though he had so many questions, he was clear about one thing. That was why he bumped into Prince William in front of the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. It was likely that the House of Medea had discovered the secret connection between Queen Aisha and the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. That was why they used the excuse of checking taxes to conduct a search. Colin had already told Prince William about the secret relationship between the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce and the trolls. Now, it was up to the prince to see if he could pry some useful information out of Sith. With that in mind, Colin quickly returned to his residence. Then, he noticed that there was a pretty, petite half-elf girl at his door. Knights of Telda, who is this lady? Colin asked curiously. Lord Viscounts, this is Kathy. She is a female slave that Prince William personally sent over just now. He said that she was a gift for you. Colin finally remembered. He had thought that Prince William was just being polite. He did not expect that he would really send over a half-elf female slave. This half-elf female slave was about 1.6 meters tall. She was thin and small, as if she could be blown away by a gust of wind. However, she had a delicate and beautiful face. Especially her large amber eyes and pointy ears, she looked very cute. She was wearing a simple green dress. On her left ankle was a metal ring that symbolized her status as a slave. She exuded a mysterious and delicate aura that made people want to protect her. Kathy saw that Colin was sizing her up. She blushed and took a step forward. She bowed and said, "Lord Viscounts, His Highness Prince William has asked me to follow you from now on." The Knights of Telda handed over a document at the right time. "My lord, this is her slave contract. His Highness has already signed it. As long as you sign your name, this female slave will be yours." Colin helplessly took the contract and said to Kathy, "Come in with me." After entering the room, Colin had just sat down on a chair when Kathy immediately poured a cup of water and brought it to Colin. "My lord, please have some water." Colin looked at the fawning face of Kathy. He smiled and waved his hand. "You don't have to be so nervous." Then he pointed to the seat opposite him and said, "Sit down." Kathy sat down obediently, but her back was straight. It seemed that she was still a little nervous. "How did you become a slave?" Colin looked at Kathy's appearance and knew that this girl's family background was not bad. She did not look like the child of a slave. "My father used to be a merchant. Later he went bankrupt, so he sold me to pay off his debts." Speaking of the unbearable past, Kathy could not help but shed tears. What a cliché story. He did not know how much of it was true. Colin looked at the pitiful Kathy and asked again, "Then how long have you been with Prince William?" "I was just sold to Prince William today." "Oh?" Colin raised his eyebrows. "Then which Chamber of Commerce did you work for before?" "Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce." As expected, Colin immediately guessed that the simple-minded Prince William did not know the true background of the Hyacinth Chamber of Commerce. And this half-elf female slave was perhaps a gift from Sith to please Prince William. But he did not expect that Prince William would directly send her to Colin. Wait, a half-elf female slave that Sith gave to Prince William? Colin rubbed his chin and suddenly laughed. "Come here." After hearing Colin's order, Kathy immediately stood up and walked in front of Colin. "Come a little closer." Kathy took another step forward. Colin suddenly stood up as well, scaring Kathy. The two of them were very close to each other. Colin deliberately moved closer, his face almost touching Kathy's face. Kathy seemed to have realized something, and her pretty face instantly turned red. Colin's masculine scent made her heart flutter and her mind completely blank. At this moment, Colin suddenly asked, "What's your surname?" "My surname is..." Kathy instantly sobered up. Her eyes widened and she quickly corrected herself. "Sir, I'm just a slave. I don't have a surname." "You didn't have a surname before you became a slave?" Kathy shook her head. "Sir, I was just a commoner before." Colin smiled coldly. He obviously did not believe her words. Kathy's subconscious reaction just now had already betrayed her. In this world, only nobles were allowed to have surnames. If Kathy was really a commoner, she definitely would not have used a sentence like, "My surname is..." Thinking about the collusion between Sith and Queen Aisha, Colin suddenly felt that this Kathy couldn't be a member of the Miller family, could she? If that was really the case, then Duke Muller was too ruthless. In order to place a spy by the enemy's side, he actually sold a member of his family as a slave. Of course, Colin also thought of another possibility. Kathy might not be related to the Miller family. She might be a spy for Sith, or one of the families behind Sith. Actually, this was the real reason why Colin had chosen to trick Kathy in the beginning. He had always felt that Sith did not seem like a commoner. A half-elf commoner, even if he had the support of trolls, would not dare to interfere with the upper echelons of Silvermoon City. It was a pity that this female slave was obviously not a knight. Colin could not turn her into a blood kin and pry open her mouth. As for a blood slave, he could turn her into one, but she was a walking corpse with no thoughts of her own. Obviously, Colin would not be able to find out about her background. "You may leave first." Kathy looked pitifully at Colin, then ran out like a frightened deer. Colin looked at the other's back as he walked away. He suddenly felt that his plan could be improved a little. Sith, Kathy, Queen Aisha. This was really an interesting clue. Chapter 104. Dark clouds covered the sky above Silvermoon City, and rumbling thunder could be heard from time to time. It was going to rain. The pedestrians on the street were in a hurry, trying to get home before the storm arrived. A small tavern in the east of the city also welcomed two guests. The waiter of the tavern knew that the two guests must be nobles when he saw their attire and temperament. Then, he unconsciously bent down and respectfully led them to a quiet table by the window. The two guests were a man and a woman. The man was in his early 20s, with bright blonde hair and blue eyes. His eyes were as deep as the sea, and everyone who was looked at by them felt like they were being seen through. The woman was slightly younger, with a pretty face and a vigorous heroic spirit. She was petite, and her movements were vigorous. What was more eye-catching was the huge broadsword on her back. The broadsword was almost as tall as the woman, with two blades on both sides. The blade was 10 inches wide, and it was engraved with a mysterious and complicated arcane array. One could even feel the lightning energy on it from time to time if they got closer. The huge broadsword formed a sharp contrast with the petite woman, and the visual impact was very strong. The top of the sword hilt was engraved with a horse spreading its wings. If one had studied the emblems of nobles in the Empire of Radiance, they would immediately recognize that this was the emblem of the House of Saint Prospero, the ruler of the Empire's East region, a pure white Pegasus. Bang! After the woman sat down, she casually leaned the broadsword on her back against the wall. But from the depth of the sword's tip and the sound of impact just now, one could tell that the sword was definitely not light. "Brother, why have you been so busy tasting wine these few days? Have you forgotten that we came to Silvermoon City with a mission?" The man smiled and did not immediately answer his sister's question. Instead, he took the wine from the waiter and poured a glass for himself and his sister. Then, he raised his glass and said, "What's the rush? Try the wine here first." The woman had no choice but to raise her glass and clink it with her brother's. As he raised his hand, the man's sleeve showed 3 silver stripes embroidered on it. This was the mark of an empire's count. Coupled with the pure white Pegasus emblem on the woman's broadsword, the identity of these two distinguished guests could be guessed. The ruler of the eastern region, the House of Saint Prospero, had only one count, and that was Saint Prospero Evan. The Earl of Avon was the second son of the Duke of Saint Prospero. Being conferred the title of Count at such a young age, it seemed that this second son of the Duke was very favored. However, those who truly understood the trade would understand that the truth was the exact opposite. Just like the northern region, the first heir of the Duke of the eastern region would also accept the title of Marquis. This title did not have any corresponding territory. After all, when the Duke died, the entire eastern region would belong to this Marquis. The Duke of the eastern region conferred the title of Earl on his second son, Evan, which was basically saying, "I'll give you the Earl title and this territory. As for my Duke title, don't even think about it." His fear was as clear as day. After drinking a glass of wine, the Earl of Avon closed his eyes and savored the taste for a long time. When he opened his eyes again, he saw his sister's unrelenting gaze. The Earl of Avon smiled helplessly and could only say, All right. Anna, do you know why I'm not in a hurry to find the half-elven royal family? Because this is a mission that is destined to fail." The Earl of Avon poured himself another glass of wine. "So, rather than wasting time, it's better to try all the good wine in Silvermoon City. This way, it won't be a wasted trip." Anna frowned and asked in confusion, "Why do you think this is a mission that is destined to fail?" The Earl of Avon closed his eyes and savored the good wine that had just entered his throat. He said faintly, "Father sent us to Silvermoon City to prevent the half-elven kingdom from completely leaning towards the northern frontier. However, I think this is almost impossible. Because the Duke of St. Hilda has a sure-win method." "Sure-win?" Anna had a look of disbelief on her face. What method can guarantee that the northern frontier will definitely gain control of the half-elven kingdom? Even if Vera successfully marries Prince Tup, it doesn't mean that she will be able to control Silvermoon City, right? After all, Prince Tup is the second-in-line heir. Moreover, didn't you say that the half-elven king is a master of balance and will not easily lean towards any side? The half-elven king is an old fox, but the Duke of St. Hilda is a lion. The Earl of Avon opened his eyes and sneered. "Do you want to know what this sure-win method is?" "What?" "The method is," Count Elvin drank another cup of wine and said in a frosty tone, "Don't worry, Kilvera. A flash of lightning pierced the sky outside the window, followed by a deafening thunder. Anna's eyes widened and she stared at her brother in a daze. After a while, she asked in disbelief, "Are you saying that if the Duke of St. Hilda kills his adopted daughter, he will definitely gain control of the half-elven kingdom?" "That's right." The Earl of Avon's eyes were bloodthirsty. "As long as Vera dies in Silvermoon City, then the northern frontier will have an excuse to send troops. I suspect that the invincible black cavalry in the northern frontier is already ready to go. They will kill their way to Silvermoon City and it will take them about 10 days. Do you think that the half-elven Silvermoon Guard will dare to defend the city by then? Will our father dare to send troops to the half-elven kingdom and fight a decisive battle with the black cavalry on land?" Anna was silent. She didn't know if she was frightened by her brother's crazy idea or if she felt that the answers to the last two questions were too hard to answer. If the black cavalry rushed all the way to Silvermoon City, then according to the glorious tradition of the half-elves, they would definitely surrender without a fight. What about the Duke of the Eastern region? He probably wouldn't dare to send troops to the half-elven kingdom and fight the black cavalry head-on. The northern frontier had just experienced a great chaos and the army had suffered heavy losses. However, as long as the terrifying black cavalry was still there, no one would dare to underestimate the northern frontier. What's more, the eastern region had not experienced war for hundreds of years. The number of troops was not small, but their combat power was worrying. Without experiencing the test of blood and fire, it was impossible to forge a strong army. If it weren't for the geographical advantage of the new Shui River, the army of the northern frontier would have already driven the house of St. Prospero out of White Dew City. Anna let out a long sigh and shook her head. "This is just your guess. Is the Duke of St. Hilda really willing to give up a daughter for the half-elven kingdom?" "She's an adopted daughter," the Earl of Avon corrected her. "Moreover, even if she's his biological daughter, so what? For someone like the Duke of St. Hilda, what can't he give up?" Anna looked into her brother's eyes and asked seriously, "If you were the Duke of St. Hilda, would you do this?" The Earl of Avon answered without hesitation, "I don't believe it." Anna shook her head. "Although father and brother don't like you and think that you're unscrupulous, have no bottom line, and don't talk about chivalry. But I know that you're not such a person." The Earl of Avon laughed. "How would you know what kind of person I am?" "I rely on my intuition," Anna said matter-of-factly. The Earl of Avon was startled, then lowered his head. There was a trace of warmth in his eyes, but he mocked, "My silly sister. You'll be deceived sooner or later." Anna snorted, apparently disagreeing with her brother's warning, and asked, "Do we really have no way to stop the northern frontier?" The Earl of Avon drank another glass of wine, shook his head and said, "Actually, there is." Anna quickly asked, "What is it?" Chapter 105. Outside the window, the sky was completely covered by dark clouds. From time to time, the muffled thunder sounded like a warning, urging the pedestrians on the street to find shelter from the rain. In the tavern, the Earl of Avon looked at his sister's anxious eyes and leisurely replied, "The solution is to immediately step into the sacred domain." Anna raised her eyebrows and glared at her brother. Obviously, she knew she was being played. "I'm only at the fourth step, far from the sacred domain. It's not early anymore." The Earl of Avon sighed, "Only 19 years old and you're already a fourth-step knight. Hee, you're definitely the most promising one among this generation of St. Prospero to become a paladin." "That's just a hope. But according to what you said, the Duke of St. Hilda is certain to take control of the half-elven kingdom. Then I'm afraid our eastern region will soon face the northern frontier's cavalry. What should we do?" The Earl of Avon laughed. "Okay, I won't joke with you. In fact, I think the only way to really stop the northern frontier is to ask for help from the San Lorenzo family." "The imperial family of the empire?" Anna looked thoughtful. "We alone can't stop the northern frontier. Only by asking for help from the imperial family is the only solution." "The San Lorenzo family? Will they help us?" "Of course they will." The Earl of Avon looked certain. "If the eastern region falls into the hands of the House of St. Hilda, Then can the San Lorenzo family suppress the house of Saint Hilda, who has 2 realms? But, isn't there the sacred covenant? Would the house of Saint Hilda dare to— The Earl of Avon smiled disdainfully. Sacred covenant? Hee, how many of the 7 paladin families that signed the covenant are left? What about the house of Saint Theon and the house of Saint Voges? Anna was silent. The young girl seemed to be not used to these dark and dirty things. The alliance agreement is fake. Only the military strength is real. If the house of Saint Hilda has the power to sweep through the empire, then Imperial Dragon City should have a new master. The Earl of Avon sighed. That's why I said that father is a fool. Sending us to Silver Moon City is a waste of effort. We might as well go straight to Imperial Dragon City. However, the half-elf kingdom has yet to fall into the hands of the northern frontier. How are we going to convince the San Lorenzo family to intervene if we go to Imperial Dragon City? A true wise man will not wait until the crisis is imminent to deal with it. Instead, he will foresee the future risks when the crisis is still in its infancy and make plans in advance. Earl of Avon pointed to the umbrella beside him. It wasn't raining when I went out, but I brought an umbrella. He pointed out the window again. Look, it's raining now. Crash. As expected, it began to rain heavily outside the window. Many passers-by who had yet to return home were immediately drenched. Anna pouted. She felt that her brother had scolded her too. She didn't bring an umbrella either. Then let's write to father and ask him to send someone to Imperial Dragon City. Do you think father will listen to my advice? The Earl of Avon looked disapproving. Then I'll write. Anna insisted. It's useless, the Earl of Avon sighed. Do you know what the hardest thing in the world is? What? It's to make a proud person admit that he is inferior to others. The Earl of Avon looked disdainful. And our father will not lower himself to beg the San Lorenzo family unless he is at his wit's end. Anna pursed her lips, her face full of stubbornness. Then are we really going to do nothing and just eat, drink, and play in Silver Moon City? The Earl of Avon had a cynical smile on his face. We have to do something. Otherwise, it will be hard to report back. Anna looked at her brother's mischievous look. She was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She said hatefully, Evan, don't forget that your surname is Saint Prospero too. Where are you going to hide if the Northern Army invades us en masse? The Earl of Avon didn't say anything. A look of pain flashed across his face. Anna wasn't in the mood to talk. She turned her head and looked at the rain outside the window, lost in thought. The storm that engulfed Silver Moon City came fiercely and left especially quickly. In the evening, the dark clouds had completely dissipated, revealing the fiery red setting sun. In the open-air garden of the half-elven palace, the maids were removing the cloth that blocked the rain, allowing the flowers and plants to receive the rays of the setting sun. Unfortunately, although the precious blood roses in the garden escaped the attack of the storm, they didn't escape the destruction of the sharp swords. A little boy around the age of 10 was waving a sharp sword, ruining Queen Elsa's beloved blood rose until it was too horrible to look at. Seeing this scene, none of the maids at the side dared to step forward to stop him. This was because this boy was Prince William's son, Charlie Morduin. The old king was leaning on his walking stick, chuckling as he watched his grandson wreak havoc in the garden. He didn't seem to have any intention of stopping him. Your Highness! Your Highness! At this moment, Prince William suddenly appeared at the entrance of the garden. He angrily reprimanded his son who was causing trouble. Charlie, that's Queen Consort's beloved blood rose. Don't chop it. The boy was shocked. He hurriedly threw away the sword in his hand, as if the destruction from before had nothing to do with him. However, the old king was not happy about it. He glared fiercely at Prince William and shouted angrily, "Why are you being so fierce? You're scaring the child." Then, he turned to look at Charlie and put on a smile again. Charlie, don't be afraid. It's just some useless flowers. Do whatever you want. Oh yeah. Charlie shouted excitedly. He picked up the sword from the ground and started destroying the blood roses again. Prince William sighed helplessly. He waved at the maids in the garden, who didn't know what to do, and asked them to leave quickly. Then he took a few steps forward, wanting to support the old king. Unexpectedly, the old king flung his hand away and glared at him. What's there to support? Am I that old? Prince William was speechless. He thought to himself, weren't you the one who wanted to pretend to be old? However, this prince who was used to being submissive did not dare to refute. He only asked softly, Father, our men have already found the guests from the east in Silvermoon City, but these two guests don't seem to be in a hurry to find us. Then what are they doing? They've been going to almost all the taverns in Silvermoon City these past few days. It seems they're tasting all kinds of good wine. The old king frowned. He obviously didn't expect these two Eastern messengers to be so unreliable. He could only say, if they're not coming to find you, then go find them. Remember to bring good wine. Yes. After Prince William left obediently, the old king looked at his excited grandson and asked with a smile, Charlie, why do you like destroying these flowers so much? Charlie was stunned. He turned his head and said, I don't know. I just like to see them fall on the ground. Ha! The old king seemed to be very happy. Good, then continue. Remember, the more beautiful these things are, the more dangerous they are. Chop them. It's best if you chop them all. Okay, chop them all. As if he had received a sacred mission, Charlie waved the sword in his hand even more vigorously. Chapter 106. Your Highness, the esteemed guest is inside. You didn't interrupt, did you? No. All right, you may leave first. After the guards left, Prince William straightened his collar and knocked on the door. Knock, knock, knock. The door opened, and Prince William immediately revealed an elegant and slightly flattering smile. But before he could introduce himself, Anna waved and said, Come in. Prince William immediately understood that his subordinates had probably been discovered by the other party, so he hurried into the room. Esteemed Earl of Avon, Miss Anna, please forgive my sudden visit. The Earl of Avon did not get up, but pointed to the chair in front of him and said, Sit. Prince William hurriedly sat down, like an obedient student facing his teacher. Then he placed the champagne he brought on the table. My lord, this is the best wine produced by the House of Medea Winery. I hope it will suit your taste. The Earl of Avon's eyes lit up and he smiled. Whether the wine is good or not, you have to taste it to know. Come, 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 let's taste it together. With that, he immediately went to get the wine glasses. Prince William quickly opened the bottle and poured 3 glasses. The Earl of Avon picked up the wine glass and shook it elegantly. Then he put it under his nose and sniffed it, and a look of enjoyment appeared on his face. He praised, It's really good wine. Prince William looked pleased. It's our honor to be liked by the Earl. The Earl of Avon smiled, took a sip, and savored it carefully. The room was temporarily quiet. Prince William did not dare to disturb the Earl of Avon's wine tasting. On the other side, Anna had already finished her glass quickly and was looking at the half-elf prince with a curious gaze. While Prince William was fidgeting under Anna's scrutinizing gaze, the Earl of Avon seemed to have finished his evaluation. Prince William, what brings you here today? Prince William cursed in his heart. Shouldn't you be the ones looking for us? Why you asking me what's the matter? However, he only dared to think about it. He definitely did not dare to say it out loud. It's like this. My guards have discovered that 2 esteemed guests have come from afar. So, as the master of Silvermoon City, I naturally have to entertain them well. Oh, just to entertain us? The Earl of Avon smiled playfully. I thought you were here for the marriage of your daughter at the northern frontier. Prince William was speechless. His face turned red from the Earl of Avon's unexpected way of speaking. When the Earl of Avon saw Prince William's reaction, he knew that this guy was really an honest person. Therefore, he stopped teasing him and turned serious. Prince William, Prince Tupe's marriage to Miss Vera was not arranged by your father, right? Of course not. Tupe is young and impulsive. He acted on his own initiative, Prince William quickly explained. I hope that you can understand and do not blame the House of Medea for this. However, since things have already come to this point, my father is also in a difficult position. If he directly rejects this marriage, I am afraid that he will offend the Duke of St. Hilda. But this matter has made my father very angry, the Earl of Avon said as he shook his head. Prince William suddenly said anxiously, Earl of Avon, please help us explain this matter to the Duke of St. Prospero. I am also very angry. The Earl of Avon said pretentiously. Hasn't the House of Medea always claimed to be neutral? Why would you dare to marry someone from the northern frontier this time? Moreover, you are marrying the daughter of a duke? Are you holding the chips in your hands? You are directly placing your bet. Prince William was speechless for a while. You don't want to see your brother marry Vera and gain the support of the dukes of the north, right? Of course not, Prince William said honestly. I have a way to help you destroy this marriage. Prince William's eyes lit up and he quickly asked, please tell me. Of course, it is not appropriate to directly reject this marriage. However, if Miss Vera's reputation is tarnished, then the House of Medea will naturally have a suitable excuse to cancel this marriage in order to protect the face of the half-elf royal family. Tarnished reputation? The Earl of Avon poured himself another glass of champagne before he said, have you heard about the chaos in the northern frontier? I have heard about it a little. Then you should know that the Black Cavalry played a decisive role in it. However, according to the results of the reward, there is someone who is not part of the Black Cavalry system who has benefited greatly. Prince William immediately thought of someone. Are you talking about the messenger of the northern frontier? Viscount Angley? Yes. Aren't you curious? How did the son of a former baron suddenly gain the recognition of the Duke of St. Hilda? Not only was he promoted to a viscount, but he was also given a much larger territory than the other viscounts. Moreover, it is said that the Duke of St. Hilda even gave him the Blade of Judgment. Prince William nodded again and again. It is indeed very strange. The Earl of Avon put down his glass of champagne and said in a mysterious tone, according to what I know, Viscount Angley met Vera who had just returned from the eastern region during the chaos. The two of them fled together and were very close to each other. Prince William also thought of something and quickly added, during the banquet at the Lion's Roar Castle, Viscount Angley also proposed to the Dukes of the North to marry Miss Vera. However, the Duke chose to marry Vera to Tup in the end. The Earl of Avon snapped his fingers and said with certainty, therefore, I am sure that Viscount Angley is Vera's lover. That is why he was recognized by the Duke. However, I am afraid that something happened later and the Duke changed his mind at the last minute. That is why he married Vera to the half-elf kingdom. So, what you mean is, isn't such a beautiful and regretful love story exactly what people like? You just need to send someone to compile the past of Viscount Angley and Miss Vera and fill in some of the scenes that would make people daydream. Then, you can ask the bards to sing about it in Silver Moon City. Wonderful. Prince William nodded again and again as if he had come up with a wonderful plan. Anna frowned as she listened to her brother's words. She did not expect her brother to come up with such a bad idea. She did not know if Prince William was really stupid or not. He actually thought that this was a wonderful plan. The Earl of Avon seemed to be unable to stand Prince William's brainless flattery and he sent him away after a few words. After closing the door, Anna turned around and looked at her brother with disdain. Is this your wonderful plan? It is a little despicable? Vulgar? Or do you think that it is futile? The Earl of Avon did not care about his sister's gaze. He poured himself another glass of wine and savored it carefully. Anna pursed her lips and wondered, didn't you say that the Duke of St. Hilda has a way to win? Even if your plan really makes it impossible for Vera to marry into the half-elf royal family, what is the use of it? The Earl of Avon spread his hands and said, I have to do something. Otherwise, I will not be able to report back to my father. At the same time, I also want to test the level of our allies and opponents. I do not know the level of our opponents, but our allies. Sigh, it seems that they are really stupid. I am now even more convinced that the northern frontier is going to win this time. So, you gave Prince William such a bad idea just to report back to your father? Otherwise? The Earl of Avon shrugged and said, the Duke of St. Hilda wants to kill his daughter. Do you think we can stop him? Maybe the Viscount Angley is the person sent by the Dukes of the North to carry out this task. This is really interesting. If the love and hatred in this story can be made into a story, it will definitely spread throughout the entire continent. Anna's eyes widened. Then, is the Viscount Angley really willing to kill his beloved? Why not? If I were him, I would faithfully carry out the Duke's orders. Maybe I will be promoted to an earl when I go back. Brother! Anna grabbed the glass of wine in the Earl of Avon's hand and scolded, "You can't always use this kind of dark psychology to judge everyone." The Earl of Avon shook his head helplessly and sighed. "Silly sister, this world is much darker than you think." Chapter 107. As the day of Prince Tup and Miss Vera's wedding approached, the entire Silvermoon City was filled with a festive atmosphere. She was the daughter of the Dukes of the North. Even though she was just an adopted daughter, she was still the daughter of a noble with the highest status in the history of the Madowan royal family. All of the half-elves felt honored to be able to do so. However, this festive atmosphere was suddenly mixed with some unpleasant noises. Some stories about Miss Vera and Viscount Angley quietly spread in Silvermoon City. Moreover, these stories were all real and did not seem to be made up. As a result, the public opinion in Silvermoon City gradually began to change. Under the influence of some people, the half-elves no longer looked forward to Miss Vera marrying into the royal family. They even began to feel that Prince Tup should not marry a noble lady with a tainted reputation. The people of this world also valued a woman's reputation very much. After all, in the absence of paternity testing technology, how could they ensure that their descendants were really of their own blood? This was a problem that was very troublesome. Therefore, in order to ensure the purity of the bloodline, the nobles would generally require the bride to be a virgin. This was the simplest way to ensure the purity of the bloodline, although it was not necessarily effective. In fact, many nobles had to go through a body inspection procedure before they got married. However, this procedure was generally targeted at the woman who was in a weaker position. If Prince Tup was marrying Vera, it was obvious that the House of Medea would not dare to perform a body inspection on Vera. This was because this procedure was simply too rude. When some of the nobles found out that their daughters were pregnant out of wedlock, they would deliberately find a lower-class noble to take over the bride's body in order to prevent the child from being a spurned illegitimate child. For the half-elven royal family, they absolutely did not want to be tainted with a bad reputation. However, if they were really asked to perform a body inspection on Vera, they probably would not have the courage to do so. However, as the rumors gradually fermented and became more and more intense, the House of Medea began to lose control of the situation. Many half-elf nobles even began to ask for Vera's body to be examined. These half-elf nobles even found a very dignified reason. The purpose of the medical examination was not to question Miss Vera's innocence. On the contrary, the purpose of the medical examination was to protect Miss Vera's reputation and to completely destroy these groundless rumors. Half-Elven Palace, Colin's residence. Duke Muller was speechless when he saw Colin reading the rumors that he had collected with great interest. Colin was indeed very happy to see that. He realized that some of these rumors were true, and some were false. Moreover, they were fabricated quite well. For example, they once rode on the same horse. For example, Colin had once risked his life to block a spear for Vera. Another example was that after the two of them met at the Mirror Lake, they had accompanied each other all the way and had developed a good impression of each other. There were even rumors that when Vera married into the half-elf kingdom, Colin had specially asked the Duke to appoint him as the messenger so that he could personally send his beloved woman to a foreign country. In short, if Colin was not the male lead, he might have really believed in such a sad and beautiful love story. Moreover, these rumors also emphasized that he and Vera had been alone together many times. Although it was not explicitly stated, it was constantly hinting that the two of them had developed a relationship that was beyond friendship. Well, this point was indeed true. Colin touched his chin and suddenly laughed. When Duke Muller saw that Colin was still laughing, he could not help but speak up. "Viscounts, this matter has now spread all over the city. Many half-elves have even started to organize a demonstration, and they are demanding that Miss Vera's body be examined to prove her innocence. Then let's do the examination, Colin replied casually. It was as if there was really nothing between him and Vera. Duke Muller was obviously stunned for a moment. He blinked and asked hesitantly, "Are you sure?" "Of course," Colin said in a loud and righteous voice. "These words that question Miss Vera's innocence are all baseless slander. You can rest assured and arrange for the examination process. As long as the results are out, these rumors will naturally be dispelled." In fact, Colin did not care about these rumors at all. In fact, he even felt that this was a really clumsy plan. If the House of Medea really dared to examine Vera's body and found out that she was not innocent, then Colin could not help but admire the courage of the other party. This was because this was simply a slap in the face to the House of St. Hilda. Colin felt that this was a plan that the silly Prince William had come up with. In order to prevent his younger brother from marrying Vera, Prince William's means were really hard to explain. However, Colin also thought of another possibility, a conspiracy by the Eastern region. The rumors were very likely to be released by the Eastern region in order to force the House of Medea to examine Vera's body and thereby offend the House of St. Hilda. In this way, the half-elf kingdom could only ask the Eastern region for help. Of course, no matter what the truth was, Colin was not too concerned about it. In fact, he actually hoped that Vera would not pass the examination so that the wedding would be ruined. As for whether Vera was innocent or not, Colin had personally examined her body. So, how could he not know? However, just as Colin was thinking about how to take advantage of the situation to destroy the marriage, he heard Duke Muller speak again. "Sir Viscounts, please rest assured that I will arrange a suitable person to examine Miss Vera's body. I will definitely not let Miss Vera be criticized." After seeing Colin's calm performance, Duke Muller believed that there was nothing going on between him and Vera. However, Duke Muller was still not at ease. After all, who knew if Vera had any secret lovers before Colin? This matter was related to the rise of the Miller family. Of course, Duke Muller did not dare to take it lightly. Colin also understood the meaning behind Duke Muller's words and tone, and he suddenly laughed in his heart. This old man was actually preparing to do something behind the scenes. However, this was indeed the best way to deal with the rumors. As long as Vera's body was examined and the result of the examination was controlled, then the rumors would naturally fall apart. Therefore, the person who was going to examine Vera's body was very important. "Who are you going to ask to examine Miss Vera's body?" Duke Muller showed a confident smile on his face. "Please rest assured that we already have the most suitable person in mind. With her identity and status, she will definitely not bring disgrace to Miss Vera." "Queen Aisha?" Colin was stunned and he immediately understood why Duke Muller said that she was the best candidate. In fact, it did not matter whether Miss Vera was innocent or not. As long as Queen Aisha said that she was innocent, then she would naturally be innocent. What would Queen Aisha say? Was there a need to ask? Who else would want to see Prince Tup marry Vera more than Queen Aisha? Moreover, there was another advantage to asking Queen Aisha to examine Miss Vera's body. That was, there was no need to worry that Prince William would raise any objections to the person who was going to examine Miss Vera's body. If it was someone else, Prince William would definitely be worried that Duke Muller would do something behind the scenes. He might even ask for someone else to examine Miss Vera's body. However, if it was Queen Aisha, then there would definitely be no problem. In terms of identity and status, was there anyone more suitable than Queen Aisha to examine Miss Vera's body? Duke Muller felt that such a response would be foolproof. Therefore, he hurriedly said goodbye to Colin before he ran excitedly to prepare for the examination. Colin looked at the back of the other party and suddenly thought of the beautiful queen consort who was surrounded by the blood roses. He also thought of the words that she had said at that time. Colin shook his head and threw that beautiful figure out of his mind. The examination this time was just a formality. Colin was not prepared to change his plan because of it. Now, he was just waiting for the Knight of Rigo to lead the Angeli family's army to Silver Moon City. Calculating the time, they should be arriving soon. As for Colin's plan, it was about time to begin. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.